All right, you're live.
Hey, Josh.
How's it going?
Good to have you in here. Like your
Awesome.
shirt.
Yes, it's fantastic.
Yes, it is. You're representing.
That's right.
Yeah.
The best show ever.
It is the best show ever. I was just watching the last episode like 2 days ago.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's my favorite one.
Yeah, the last one and the fourth one.
Fourth one is Nicodemus.
No, I believe that's the third one. The fourth one is the fish.
Oh, the fish is good. Yeah. Honestly, it's like the first one I thought was really good.
Yeah.
With Mary Magdalene, and then the second one, a lot of people don't like it very much. I kind of like it because I like the way it kind of, I would say, don't burn me for blasphemy, but like humanizes Jesus. He's like,
Yeah, absolutely.
he's building stuff, and he's got all these little kids that go out and he builds little toys for them or whatever. I thought it was a really good idea how they kind of like did that, and
It kind of drags on a little bit, I think.
yeah,
That's probably my least favorite.
it's their weaker one.
Yeah.
I think it's their weaker episode maybe, but
And it's the shortest episode as well.
Is it?
Yeah. It's only like 40 minutes long.
Oh, okay. That's when they didn't have much money.
Yeah. Let's just knock this one out.
Yeah, it's just like, well, kids are cheap. We'll make one with kids. Kids, who has kids of the crew? Bring those kids and throw them in there.
That'll work.
We'll give them some Skittles and they'll be happy. Yeah, but I thought they just did such a great job on everyone. Everyone is like the leper one is great.
Yes, we actually just watched that one a couple days ago.
Oh yeah, that one's really good. Yeah. That when they did that with the leper and he actually he actually heals them like miraculously.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, this can be real good because they're not going to pull any punches on this show. They're not going to try to. I see other ones where they like make it look like maybe he did a trick or just
really?
coincidental, and like they did one. Anthony Hopkins played Paul in a movie. He did a movie on Paul, but then there were all the miracles were like. Like
coincidental
or people just interpreted it that way, and Paul's basically like, no, I don't do miracles.
That's terrible.
Yeah, they kind of, because the life of Paul's so interesting to me, and I would love for someone to make a good. I always thought, man, if someone would just make a movie with what it says, even if you don't believe it, but just, I mean, do they honestly believe Avatar? All right, and they're like, well, the Bible's not credible. It's like, do you believe Star Wars? Do you honestly think that you can see a laser? They shoot their laser gun and you see the laser move. Yeah, it's like the slowest bullet on Earth, and then the people are dodging. It's like that's a light beam. It's instantaneous for all practical purposes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then they have a lightsaber where the light only goes 2 feet and stops. I mean, is any of that credible, right? And so why wouldn't you just make the Bible movie with what it says?
It'd probably make it a lot better, actually. I mean, the stories are, I would say, ridiculous enough to use that word, but I mean, it's almost unbelievable in a lot of it. Yeah. And it seems scripted in some ways if you look at the life of Saul or Paul. Uh-huh. I mean, it's pretty dramatic. If you just make that, just a beginning story, him persecuting the Christians,
and it's not like these aren't stories in a book that hasn't done reasonably well in sales, right? I mean, it's not like people are like, that's too. Where'd that book come from?
I got an idea. We'll make a movie based off the best-selling book ever
in history,
but we're gonna change it.
And we're gonna make it like all these other movies that have bombed at the box office. It's just finally they do this, and it's like, wow, now that's great. I just love how they've done it with such credibility. They really put, they just taken it very seriously. Yeah. I love that so much about that show. They're like almost there, right? Have you checked where they're at with season 2? They're raising their funds.
I believe
they lack.
Go ahead.
I believe they're at like season 4 or 5.
Episode 5, I believe.
Yeah.
They funded through episode 5, so they lack maybe 3. I think 3. I think it's 8, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they lack 3 episodes. Well, I bought a bunch of shirts and gave them a bunch of money.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, because I mean, that's why I keep pushing it, because it's like I'm tired of hearing if any Christians aren't watching this and supporting it in somehow, then don't whine about there not being Christian entertainment.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
all the if you're out there and you're whining and crying that there's no good Christian entertainment and you're not watching The Chosen and you're not supporting it somehow, that's fine. That's fine, right? You're going to go to hell, but that's fine, right? But
It's a lesser hell, though.
yeah,
It's okay.
they say that Satan lives in Texas, but hell's his summer home. So that's not too bad. No, you know, that's fine. If you don't want to watch it, you're too busy or whatever. But then don't whine that there's no Christian entertainment, because they're doing a really good job at it. I mean, they are doing a fabulous job at presenting entertainment that is as true to the biblical text, I think, as you can get.
Yeah.
And taking it seriously. Now, there are differences you might have with how they're portraying it. And obviously, they're having to compress some of the storyline in and economize characters by getting, like Thomas being the guy at the wedding, right? Obviously, that's probably not the case, and I doubt they honestly think that's the case. But they have to get Thomas in there, and it's just a way to do that story and Thomas' story and jam them together. So, you know, this is, you know, Christians are that way. They're like puritists, right? Purists. It's like, well, if there's even the smallest detail that they dramatize, then it's like, no,
That's not in there.
It's dead to me.
He didn't say that. Chapter and verse.
Yeah. So, and it's not in King James English, so I imagine that offends some people. Like,
that would have been terrible.
They just hear Jesus speaking King James English.
Yeah, that's the only language he knows.
Yes.
That's it.
Bart Ehrman. You know who Bart Ehrman is?
No.
He's a unbeliever, atheist or agnostic, may be better, more accurate, professor of New Testament studies at North Carolina, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Okay.
Which is not a Christian university. It's a secular university, North Carolina's university. But he teaches New Testament studies. So he's a Greek expert.
Oh, nice.
And he's teaching it from, you know, manuscripts and as literature is his view. He used to be a Christian. Now he's agnostic. Anyways, he in the start of every class, every year, he gives his students, or used to, I don't know if he still does, he gives his students a test. And it's like a 13 question test. And he says that he'll buy them a steak dinner, whoever can get 7 out of the 13 right, or 7 out of the, however many it is, 7 out of 12 or whatever, but 7 right out of this test. And it's not a hard test. It's a very easy test, really.
Is that the one that you posted?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
And like one of the questions is, what language was the Bible written in? And he says that he always has, every year he has people say, you know, English.
Yeah. The original Bible.
The original is English. King James was the third apostle.
It's the first Bible. It was the first time it was ever comprised together.
Yes. You have Peter, Paul, and King James. They think that's who James was. See, James was.
How did you do on the test?
I got one wrong.
You got the WEP one, right? The shortest verse in the Bible.
Yes, because he was going with the Greek Bible, and I answered the English Bible, which would be Jesus wept. But pray without ceasing is the shortest one in Greek, which I should have figured out, because it's the shortest in Spanish because of the way the verbs work in Spanish. And Greek and Spanish are a lot more similar than Greek and English.
Interesting.
And so I should have got that one right. It irritated me. I got it wrong.
Did you retake it to get it right?
I did. And then I got another one wrong.
That's terrible.
It is terrible. Yeah. No, it's like, and it's amazing how many Christians get these questions wrong. And that's kind of his point to them, is that, you know, they're very staunch defenders in their minds. They're staunch Christians and whatever, and they don't know basic knowledge.
Yeah, the basic fundamentals of the Bible.
And it's not trick questions. They're not trick questions. They're just basic knowledge about the Bible, and his point is they don't know nearly what they think they know.
Yeah.
Which to me is a fair point. It's like, I think it's a very fair point. I think we ought to be more concerned about that in ourselves. That
How many times has he said that he's in the years he's given that test?
less than a half a dozen. Yeah. That he's had to pay out. Yeah, I think he said like 3, if I'm not mistaken, but it's less than 6.
And like years and years.
And he has huge classes. These are huge classes, and they don't know 7. And they're taking, this isn't like he goes into a
Right.
geology class and says, I'm going to test you on the Bible. These are people who are choosing to take. His is an elective course. It's not a requirement. So they are choosing to take a Bible class, a class about the Bible, about New Testament, and all his questions are about the New Testament. There's no Old Testament questions. There's not like, who's the third cousin of the fourth, the fourth brother of whatever of the Old Testament, and who had 7 toes but only 3. None of that. It's just they're straightforward, easy questions on the New Testament and the New Testament documents, basically, which if you're taking a college course on New Testament studies, it seems to me you should be able to answer at least 7 of those questions.
Yeah. I wonder if he does that before the class starts, or is it after?
No, yeah. I worry. Then it's
At
him,
the
right?
end of the class.
At the end of the class, then it's like, well, now it's you.
I want a refund. I failed your test.
They ought to do that. They ought to say, we'll take it on the start, and then we'll take it at the end, and if we can't answer the questions, then you buy
Exactly.
then you owe us a steak dinner. We wasted our money in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. That's what he does, and I think more Christians ought to take a test like that and see where they're at.
Yeah.
Too many Christians, I think, are unfamiliar with basic knowledge. Some people, when I did that, when I posted it on Facebook, some people didn't like it, and their basic response was, "Well, I don't memorize trivia." It's like, well, this isn't really trivia.
Yeah, we're not talking about Seinfeld here.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a little bit different.
It is. It's basic knowledge of a subject that you say you care more about than anything in the world. So it doesn't seem to be. I don't think it's an unfair thing to expect for Christians who spend basically they argue that they read the Bible every day, which I think many Christians actually do. Obviously not all of them, but I think many Christians actually read the Bible every day. They think about everything from the perspective of the Bible. They have a biblical worldview, and that's why I find it disturbing that there are a good number of Christians who really don't know much about it.
Yeah. Do you think most Christians read the Bible every day?
Most, as in
Over
like
50%.
90 over like technically most.
Yes.
Like the majority. It would not surprise me if they did. I'd have to look that up and see if there's been some research done on that. It wouldn't surprise me if it is a majority that actually read the Bible every day. It wouldn't surprise me.
It would surprise me.
I would guess it to be closer to 30%.
Yeah. And I guess I'm including like professing Christians
Right.
in on that.
Well, yeah, so would I.
Okay, yeah.
Because
I
then
would
we
say
could just define that all Christians read the Bible every day.
so.
Meaning that if you don't read it, you're not a Christian.
Isn't that works-based though?
Do you read the Bible every day? Well, there you go. You're not a Christian.
If you go without reading your Bible for 3 days, you lose your salvation.
Yes, definitely. I think that's in the Bible.
I'm pretty sure. I think that's in King James chapter 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, I would probably put it, and also, it depends what you mean by read it. So, because a lot of is audio now. A lot of people, that's what I do. I do more audio than anything because then I can listen to it. I listen while I'm driving or whatever.
Yeah.
So I count that as reading. To me, that's the same thing. And then you got, how big of portions are we talking about? You got a lot of people have these they get it on their Facebook. They get like a little portion of scripture.
3 verses.
Yeah, and they read that, and it has a little meditation on it. So I would count all of that in there.
Yeah, I would say so.
Because I don't know of any other. I mean, if you say, well, no, you have to read a full chapter to count, but that's an arbitrary division already. So
Right.
then what's wrong with my arbitrary division of a paragraph or 3 sentences or whatever? So
Yeah,
to me,
and
it's
a
like
chapter can be 5 pages long or
right. Yeah,
half
it could
a
be
page.
Psalm 119
Exactly.
or it could be the book of Jude. It's like
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
1 chapter.
yeah, one chapter.
Same measurement.
So I would count anyone who's reading, who has an intention of reading or of absorbing some part of the scripture once a day.
Yeah.
Whether it's they get a daily devotional sent to them in their email, or they get it they have notification on their phone of it. There's all kinds of ways that they've set up to do this where it's not what we would think of the traditional sitting down, opening a book, reading 3 chapters, checking them off on your little reading list. That's the traditional way that Christians always done it. And I think that a lot of Christians are now using modern technology, and it's a whole different thing. And I'm not sure that it's better. I wouldn't say that it's better, but I mean, to me, it counts for reading. And if you count all that, then I think the numbers might get pretty high.
Interesting. Yeah, I find that audio, just listening to audio, I don't retain it very well. No, surprisingly, I don't. I found the best way is actually reading out loud. Which
really,
yeah, you look like a crazy person sometimes if I'm like sitting at my office desk or something, eating lunch and reading out loud. Like I have to close the door.
Well, especially if you're dramatizing and you're doing all the voices.
Yes. Well, I have to.
Yes, of course.
I mean,
what voice do you do when you get to Balaam's ass and he starts speaking?
I can't do that voice. I'm still working on it.
Have you listened to the audio? Because a lot of what I do when I actually read, like sit down and read, other than for sermon preparation, but like just to read, I like to read to audio. Have you ever done that?
Yes, that works.
Where you have
very
audio
well.
playing and then you read
along
and get
with
someone
it.
who's really good at reading it and try to emulate that reading.
I haven't tried to emulate it, but
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah.
So I get that one, and Daniel told me who it was. But remember that? Did I give you that? Did I ever send that to you? That guy who read the passage in Mark for Tim Keller's sermon. It was a Tim Keller sermon.
I don't recall that.
So Tim Keller preached a sermon. He preached, well, obviously lots, but there was one I listened to where he preaches in Mark on Simon the Pharisee who brings Jesus to his house, and then the woman comes in and anoints his feet, the adulterous woman, and then the Pharisee's like been out of shape, you know, if this man only knew. Well, anyway, so that was the sermon on that text, and he reads. Timothy Keller doesn't do the reading. Apparently, they have readers who read the text before the service or during. It's part of the whole part of the service, and then Timothy Keller gets up and then he preaches on the text that was read in the service, which I like. I wouldn't mind doing that.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah,
it would, because it's like part of the service. Then it's like they have song, and then it's like now for the word of God, and then someone gets up who has read this through and can read it well, and then he reads it out loud. Everyone's standing, I imagine, and that when I've seen, they're all standing, and then he reads it out loud, and it's like a whole chapter. They read a whole chapter together. And then the sermon is based on that. So then Timothy Keller doesn't actually read the text anymore. He just presents a sermon off the text that was read.
You want me to read one for you? I can do it.
You can do it?
Help.
So anyways, he has this guy reading it. Well, you can tell right away that this is a professional voice actor.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just tell right away. Because this guy is good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really good. It was so good that all I did was listen to him all day. I just kept rewinding it. I was like, how does he do that?
Exactly.
That is crazy. Because he's doing like, it'd be wrong to call him voices. He's not doing voices, because it's not like when there's a woman speaking, he tries to do a woman's voice. But he's putting all the emotion that you can imagine of each person into his voice when he says it. So like when the Pharisee says he thinks within himself, if this man knew who this woman was. Well, when he says that, he says it as if he's saying it under his voice. Like if you were like almost like, this man, I can't even do it, right? I could do it if I wasn't trying to, because I'm not an actor. Because we all do. We have a way of, when you're like murmuring just like under your voice.
Exactly.
Like, can you believe this? He does
You're not
it like that.
thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, he does it like that. And it's like, when he did that, I'm like, wow, now that's pretty talented.
He doesn't have to go and do different impersonations.
No, it's no
all
corniness. No corniness.
Tone and volume.
It's all about acting, voice acting, all the emotion. So when he says it, what's going on? It's like you can now visualize it.
Nice.
You can just see that guy's face and how he's just like kind of burying his chin in his chest and just like, if this man only knew who. And then, Jesus says, I have a question for you, Simon. And then Simon says, tell me. But he says it like, speak on, master.
Yeah.
It's just really
You got my attention.
yeah.
Go ahead.
You'd have to listen to it. I'll send it to you.
Nice.
So, anyways, Daniel, when I send it to Daniel, Daniel says, "I know that voice." Well, he's on the U version from the app, the U version app. If you download that, you can have their audio. They have it all on red, right? And they have different people reading, and you can choose him, and he's on there. He read the whole, so you can listen to the whole Bible with his voice.
Wow.
That's the one I like to listen to.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And then come to find out, I did some research, and yeah, he's like a professional actor, like on Broadway or whatever. So,
Okay.
yeah, so he's highly trained in his voice, and he just does a great job so then I started trying to do that in church. Not nearly
Is
as
that what
successful. Not nearly as successful.
That's why I stopped coming, actually. It wasn't this COVID stuff.
Yeah, no, it's like this is getting kind of weird. But yeah. So what I do, and what I try to do is I have no illusions that I'll ever be like that. But what I did was start taking more seriously, actually reading it and not just burning through it, not just like blah, 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 blah,
Yeah, we got to get this done.
get the
that way I
information
can...
out, but trying to think, what would this person be thinking? What would be the emotion in their voice? How would I, if it were me? And so trying to read it a little more like that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily thinking, they're going to hire me to record the next version.
That's not your dream?
No, not at all. But I would like to be able to read with a little more intention.
Well, I keep expecting for your Bible app to have an audio version.
Of him
With
reading?
with me reading it?
You reading it. You or me.
Oh,
One
okay.
of the two.
The 45-year plan.
Yeah. Yeah, reading out loud is definitely a skill.
It
Just
is.
in general. I mean, just reading, like if we were to open the Bible and read out loud, like there's people that are really good at it. You can tell have done it for a while, and there's people that you can tell just read in their head all the time.
That's right. And that's what I found. So now, like when I prepare for a sermon, I would say, well, when I first started doing that, when I first found it, I'm like, oh, wow, this is more how we should be reading.
Yeah.
This intentional reading. Not just trying to get through the text and get the information, but actually really putting some thought into what it's saying and how it's saying it, who's saying it, how they would say it, and trying to like communicate that information through tone, through cadence, and all of that. And so when I first started doing that, then I would take like my study or preparing for a sermon. I would say 50% of the time was just reading out loud the same text, trying to get it down and reading it. And I would sit there when I first started, I would say I like didn't go to work for 2 days, and all I did for 2 days was read till I was hoarse, the same like chapter over and over and over and over and over, trying to figure out how to get that. And yeah, it's extraordinarily hard to do that, especially you can get it and then like you nail one part right, but then to repeat that, that's real hard. Like I did the sermon I preached on the prodigal son or the frugal brother. I read it that way, and I worked all week on just the reading part. Yeah, and it came out so
not to your liking.
I mean, there was parts where I knew, okay, like the best part that for me that came out, and a couple people mentioned it to me that they noticed it and liked it, was when the son comes back, the prodigal comes back, and he starts to give his speech to the father. I'm not worthy to be called thy son, and then. To me, the father interrupts him like mid-sentence. So I tried to read it like that. So I read it where he's speaking, and then I cut in on the father, like trying to break my own sentence in half. Yeah. And I think I got that.
Nice.
Right? Don't you think?
Yeah, I think that was probably the best part of it.
Yeah. I think I got that. But what I did is when I had the text and I had notes on it, how slow or what emotion I thought that should be there, and then I had those notes, and so I'm to remind myself.
As you're reading it, you're reading your notes. Yeah, that's difficult, also.
Yes, it is. Well, they're short notes, right? It's just like anger or shame, or just so I kind of, because if not, you just get lost and you're just reading and you're just like repeating words. You're not. Yeah. It's like and that's the deal with acting when you. I assume, right?
When I act, this is the issue I have.
So let me tell you how it goes in the actor's studio. Now, when you're real, when you're not acting, you say things with the emotion that's there. But when you're reading, you don't have any of that emotion. You're just reading words. You're just repeating words.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is what's kind of lacking is that reality when we read something, when we read the text. So anyways, yeah, that's what my attempt is to do now. And not all passages lend themselves to that. The Gospels are great.
Yeah.
You know, you read the Gospels, they're really good. You get the epistles, they're not as, there's a lot less to work with many times.
Right.
There.
Especially when it comes to like instruction and things like that.
I mean, there's some, and you can, but you don't want to be sound like, earnest all the time.
Right.
Pray without ceasing. You want to, but the Gospels, you have all these different people, and it's so colorful, and there's so much emotion going on. There's so much activity going on with tons of characters. So it just gives you that opportunity to kind of try to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like to listen to him when I read. So I listen to him on the U version. I think there's a couple of them, but you have to find him. You can tell him because he has that almost like a British. He's not British, but he almost has like that British type pronunciation.
They're wondering if you know his name.
I do not know it. Well, I knew his name. I'd have to look for it and put it on there. I'll try to look for it and put it on the comments. But if you go to YouVersion, there's only, I think for the English King James Bible, there's only 2 or 3, and one of them's a woman, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's him. So it's not hard to find. If you download the YouVersion, it's a free Bible app, and they have a free audio reader. You don't have to pay to use it.
Okay.
So you can just search for anything, and when you get it on the screen, you can tell it to audio, and it'll read it for you. So I like to listen to him while I read it out loud and kind of try to get how he's seeing it.
Yeah.
And then I like to myself analyze the text and try to, say...
Find the emotion.
Yeah, I try to find my emotional core.
Gotta center myself.
Yes.
Yes. Perfect. I would like to see how he reads like the genealogies and things like that. If he can make that interesting.
That would be... I have to look that up because, if he makes that interesting, I think I'll cry.
It's so emotional.
But everyone I sent that to, I sent them that sermon and said, listen to the guy reading. Everyone was like, whoa.
Nice.
I mean, it's like everybody I sent it to. I didn't have anyone I sent that to that went like, yeah, what? Everyone was like, whoa.
It's like he read. Okay.
Because it's like goosebumps. It's like, wow, that is talent right there. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. To me, it outshined the message, and the message was good. The sermon was good, but yeah, it was really good. I was going to ask you, how did you get saved?
So as a child, actually, we, our parents used to make us get on the bus for the Baptist church that drove around.
Which one?
It was, I believe it was called Harmony Baptist on the south side. I'm not sure if they're still there or not. So we would go there. We would listen every once in a while, but most of the time we just ran around the church doing nonsense. But I had a basic understanding of what the gospel was. We ended up moving out of state and stayed over there for a little while, and then came back, and I had no interest in the Bible, no interest in God. Got involved in some unsavory things, we can say, and actually met Jessica in high school, and she didn't really witness to me in school, but as we got to know each other more and outside of school and started dating, she would talk to me more and pressure me into going to church. If I want to pursue a relationship, this is what it's going to be, and I had to accept it. Not that I have to go to church or she's leaving or anything like that. It's just I guess an unspoken understanding between the two of us.
Okay.
And surely I started listening more and more to what was preached, and I found myself at a spot later on in life. Actually, I almost literally viewed 2 different pathways in my mind of I can follow this path of Christ and the church and this style of living, or I can follow this other path, which was living a bad life. And I can see where that ended, because a lot of my family, most of my family actually, lived that way. Mm-hmm. And it was just as clear as day, 2 different paths that I can see down the road on. and I made the decision like hey, I need to go down this path of righteousness.
And how old were you then?
20, 21, 22, somewhere around there.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow, so you were actually still pretty young. I thought you were a little older than that when you had gotten saved.
Yeah, for some reason I appeared older in my 20s. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people, even actually whenever I got my first promotion, I was 18 at the airport. And
So you were already working at the airport.
yes. Yeah, so
Okay.
I went up and I put my my resume in, and the general manager at the time, he started laughing. He's like, what was so funny about my resume? I didn't understand. He's like, you put your wrong birth year on here. You put that you were born in 86. Like, that's when I was born. Well, that would only make you 18. Like, I am 18. He's like, no way. So I don't know if that is attributed to, that bad lifestyle. Maybe I just looked really bad for my age.
You have no hope when you're 60.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I appeared older at that time.
Right. And how did you get into working at the airport?
My dad's friend actually worked there. I worked at a restaurant at the time, and I was complaining that they weren't giving me hours. And one of my dad's friends said, hey, come to the airport. You can work as much as you want. And at first, I'm like, as much as I want? Like, I want to work a lot. It's like, no, you can work as much as you want. It's like, all right, I'll go check it out. So I went over there, and sure enough, like, I was working 40 hours overtime
Really?
consistently. Yeah. And as soon as I get burnt out, I think I'm going to find something else. And then an opportunity for promotion came up. It's like, I'll try it out. I'll put my name in there and then get that one. The same thing would happen. Burn myself out, and okay, it's time to go. Another promotion comes up, like, I'll put in for it. And I'm at that point again now. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of burnt out, and there's
Really?
yeah, there's no more promotions
There's
left.
no more left to go, huh? You're at the
Unless I
top of
wanna-
the ladder.
Right, unless I want to move to either Florida or
Oh.
New York, and I'm not too interested, especially in New York.
Yeah.
Pass.
That's interesting. So how old were you once you got to the top of the ladder?
That would have been, well, I was operations manager. That would have been 6 years ago now, I want to say. And about a month after I got the spot, the general manager came down. Well, he had cancer, stage 4 cancer, and he basically immediately left. So I was doing both jobs, the general manager job and the operations manager job. I started that about 6 years ago. So
And are you still doing it like that, or are you the general manager now?
just a general manager now. I had another operations manager that ended up not being so good. But I actually have my brother as the operations manager now. He was a general manager in another location,
Oh, okay.
but that location ended up shutting down, and I was able to bring him back over. So it worked out well, which actually it's kind of funny because
How's it like working with him? Is it good?
it's fantastic.
Oh, really?
He's really, really good. He's amazing, actually. And he's just one of those guys where you just say, I think we need to get this done. And he's on it. He's like, okay, let's do it. It's like, all right, that was easy. Like, my job's done. Which is a complete contrast to what I previously had. What I previously had was, we need to get this done. It's like, well, I don't think we need to do that. It's like, you're not listening. Like, we need to get this done, meaning you need to go do this. So
I'm
yeah.
trying to say it nicely, right?
Exactly.
Trying to say it nicely.
Trying to treat you as an adult, not as a child.
Yes.
Some people need to be talked to as a child.
Oh, I know. I run a business.
Yes. Yes, you definitely know.
Yes, I do.
I don't understand what that means.
I've actually had employees tell me that. Like, hey, could you go, or how would I say it? I used to say it, would you mind go taking care of this for me? As a polite way of saying, go do this. And they would say, no, I don't want to do that. It's like, okay. At first I would take offense. Like, are you saying no to me? It's like, no, you asked if I would mind, and I don't want to do it. If you want me to do it, tell me to do it, and I'll do it. I'm like, so I learned to be
More assertive.
very, very much so, yeah. I learned a way to do it to where it's a little bit more polite, but it's still not asking. Like, there's no option here.
There's no wiggle room for them to
Exactly.
say, well, you asked and I declined.
And that's one thing I try to teach to my supervisors is Like, don't ask them to do it. You can tell them to do it, but tell them in this manner.
Right.
And it works.
Like, how
out
would you
pretty
tell me to do something if I was working for you?
well. Basically, it's you emphasize your need for them. Say, hey, I really need you to go take care of this. This needs to be done, and basically kind of build them up. Like, you can do this. I need you to do this, and they feel a more sense of pride of, well, my boss asked me to do this, not anyone else. A little bit of reverse psychology, I guess, but it most of the time works. Sometimes they're like, ugh, I don't want to go out there, but they'll drag their feet to go out there. But for the most part, I do really well at it.
You should try that at work.
I try that.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I'm not like
it doesn't work then.
What you do, what you. See,
I don't
the
see-
problem
I don't
is
see
what
Nolan
he
as
does,
encouraging
He goes,
anyone.
literally, a monkey could do it, and you're doing it wrong.
I had a
You
supervisor.
explain to me how in the world you are doing it wrong. That's confidence. That is like, oh, thank you. I don't know why I'm doing it wrong, but thank you for the confidence. I'm glad a monkey can do my job.
We had a supervisor that used to say that. Like, a monkey can do this job. We should hire a bunch of monkeys and pay them in bananas. Like, shut up. Stop saying that. Some of it's true, though. It's a very simple job.
Marco told me a story. They were working in Houston, and my dad gets up to him and he goes, you couldn't possibly go any slower. There's no possible way you can go any slower.
Yeah.
And then Marco says, I'm moving as fast as I can. I really think I'm moving. He goes, there's no way. You couldn't. He's mad.
Right.
Right. And so Marco, he feels so bad. Right. 'Cause
Yeah.
He's telling him, no, there's no way. You could not, you could never move as slow as you're moving now. He goes, I don't know what to do to move any faster.
That's the hardest thing for me, actually, is correcting people that I know are trying to do well. Like, in their mind, like, they're trying to do the job correctly. But you're looking at them, you're like, you're not doing it correctly at all. You're doing it way too slow. But just to go and, like, I guess knock them down a peg, like, I guess kind of what you guys, or what you were doing to them.
Well, to Marco's story, the next day, he proved me wrong and showed that he did know how to do it slower. No, I'm joking. No, the next day he figured out, and he was moving much, much faster.
Nice.
Well, I helped him. I went in and watched him do one. I'm like, okay, yeah, you can't possibly do it slower. I was accurate. But here's why, and gave him some tips. And then the next day he was like doing really well. Yeah. So it's a good thing about him. He takes the type of constructive criticism that I'm prone to give.
Is that constructive criticism?
Yes. That's me building people up.
You got to tear them down first.
Yes, he does that, and he does it when I'm working.
Right.
So I'm in a different job, so then he calls me, and he goes, I'm having to redo everything. Things that took me like 3 weeks to do. Like,
Right.
I caulked the whole job.
Oh, we're going to get into that.
They're going to hear about it.
Listen, people.
They're going to end up calling the Small Business Association for me. Is that what it's called?
No, I don't even know you don't know what you're talking
about. What is that?
That doesn't exist.
No.
Not in Texas.
Okay.
You got nothing to stand on.
Like I said,
He calls me. I have to recall. It took me like 3 weeks to do it all. I mean, thousands of seams. And he goes, I'm redoing everything. You did such a terrible job.
Let me just ask you one question. Was it a terrible job?
No, it was not. I'm so sure.
What was that?
I don't know. You hear a noise?
Yeah. It was weird. It was a computer. I don't know. Anyways. Yeah, no, it was terrible.
Yeah, I find that trying to encourage the people and teach them tends to work out a little bit better than talking down to him.
Nah.
Although there's
so.
definitely times where I had to talk down to some of the guys. They feel that the biggest thing that gets under my skin is the entitlement.
Mm.
The entitlement in our line of work, there's a lot of downtime, and you'll work out of an 8-hour day. You'll actually be working probably about 4-6 hours on a difficult day.
Mm-hmm.
And when these guys work the 6-hour days, it's a lot of I need my breaks and that sort of complaining. So when it gets to that point, I typically try to take them down a peg and make them realize, hey, like, you're working here. This isn't your hangout area.
Right.
So yeah, there's
It's
definitely,
easy to get to really to where you just want to do that. You just want to hang around and talk.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially whenever this COVID stuff started and the airlines basically shut down. I mean, out of a 8-hour day, our guys were doing 2 flights a day, refueling 2 flights a day, and refueling a flight takes at the most 30 minutes.
So they just had a lot of free
a
time.
lot of downtime. Yeah.
And so then when that's over, to come back and then say, hey, let's go back to working,
Yeah.
that's hard for a lot of people to do.
Yeah. They adjusted quite well to it. They eventually realized, I don't want this much downtime, because they realized their 8-hour day felt like a 30-hour day.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like. In fact, we got to now where we don't even take. I don't know if you're still doing that, but I don't even take a lunch.
It depends who I'm working with and what we're doing. Sometimes
Let me guess who.
I just need that 30-minute break. I have to have it, because
Yeah.
otherwise it feels a long day.
Even though you're busy.
Even though
the
I'm
entire day.
busy, it's because I'm busy
Babysitting.
babysitting basically, and it becomes tedious, and I just need a break.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, see, I don't even take a lunch. I just work from 7 to 2:30 is what I try to do. Sometimes for whatever, maybe we may work later, but I try to do 7 to 2:30, no lunch. And because I just found that when I take a lunch and then I come back, it's so hard to restart. Just that break is hard for me to restart what I'm doing.
Yeah, anytime I'm doing something physical, I'm the same way. And my wife, she'll like, you need to eat. I'm like, no, if I eat, I can't get back to work as fast. Like,
Yeah.
I need to knock this out, and then I'll eat afterwards.
That's what I've started to do. And what I do is I take like protein bars or whatever, and I'll just like eat one.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and I just stop a couple minutes, eat a protein bar, and then
Yeah.
that's what I've been doing. Well, what I think is so interesting about you at the airport is that how you went in basically ground level, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you were right at the very bottom.
Yeah, $7 an hour.
Yeah, and then worked yourself up to general manager. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, that's something that the company actually strongly believes in. It's rare for them to bring in someone off the street, even as a line supervisor. Like, they want to get someone
They
that's
want to
started.
promote from the bottom up.
Correct. Even the owner of the company's son, he's a vice president now, or assistant vice president, I think, whatever. He started off as a fueler. Whenever they promoted him, they sent out an email, and he listed what his experiences were with Allied and how he climbed the ladder, type of thing. And I would say nothing was really given to him. And when I met him and spoke with him, he's a very sharp guy. Like, he knows what he's doing. He wasn't given the spot because he's the boss's son.
There was no nepotism there.
I don't think so, actually. I mean, at some degree, he's on the radar,
Right.
bigger than anyone else, but he wasn't just handed a job for sure.
Right.
He was a fueler. He was a supervisor. He was a
Well,
line
see, I've
manager.
always thought that in where I'm in construction, that they ought to take these architects and these project managers, everyone involved in the decision making of construction, and they should all have to start hanging drywall or whatever,
Yeah.
sweeping the floors, and make them work 2 years in construction before they ever actually get to draw on a piece of paper.
Yeah, that would help out a lot.
It would help a lot.
We built a new facility for our location, and I just heard that the contractors just, you can't do this, and looking at the blueprints, and like, you have to do it this way instead of this way for this particular reason. Like, I don't care, just build it. I don't care how you do it, as long as it passes inspection.
Yeah.
We need to move in.
No, that's very typical in with stuff I do, that they draw things that just are not going to pass inspections. They're not up to code. They're not feasible. They're not. I mean, right now we're installing toilet partitions at a county jail, and they bought these toilet partitions that are not made for jails. I mean, completely the wrong material for that. So what they have is they have all these metal brackets, metal hinges, metal little chute covers around the bases that you can just you can just pry them off.
Yeah.
Just pop them off. They have a tiny little screw that holds them on. You just pop them off, and you got this piece of stainless steel. You can,
Shank.
yeah, you got to grind into a shiv. You can just rip the doors off, and then you got this huge, long stainless steel hinge you can use as a sword.
What happened?
It's just so stupid. And I'm trying to tell him, and the architect's like, "That's my design." What kind of answer is that? That's my design. But yeah, that's what we deal with every day. That kind of stupidity.
Did you guys end up putting those in or something?
No, I'm putting them in right now. That's what I'm doing. I tried to tell them, and they're like, "That's our design. Just we have to get this done." I'm like, all right, fine. You're gonna be ripping them out.
Yeah. Or people are going to be dying.
Yeah, they're gonna rip them out.
Yeah.
They're not gonna. They'll never.
They're not going to approve them.
No, anyone who knows anything, because the architect says, well, in this facility, they're under constant surveillance.
Oh my goodness. You might as well just put a bunch of guns then,
Yeah.
right? Just put,
Oh, like, then why are we, yeah, exactly. Why do we have doors? Why do you have locks? I mean, they're under constant surveillance. What's the point of a jail?
That makes sense. As opposed to those other jails that are
Yes, as opposed to other jails where they just like throw them in an island and Survivor.
make a food drop every couple of days.
Yeah, so stupid.
Perfect.
That's exactly what we deal with. Yeah, no. So I think that your story on that is a really good thing for, especially young men to consider that there is, and we've kind of gone over this in some of our podcasts lately. Like with Christine, we talked a little bit about this topic, but for young men to realize that there is a path to a very prosperous life through just hard work.
Yep.
Where I have nothing against college. I have nothing against education. I have nothing against trying to come in at a higher rung. Maybe if I wouldn't, if I ran a company, I probably wouldn't run it there. I like the system you're talking about,
Right.
where you're working, where they want to bring people in and they want them to know the business from the ground up, so they know what they're talking about all the time. I prefer that, but it's fine if there's companies where there's professions where that's not really possible.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And so that's fine. But for anyone who's like, man, I just don't really want to go to college. I don't really want to spend all that money and all that time to try to get something that's uncertain. And is there a path where, because the narrative that you're fed many times is that if you don't go to college, that you're never going to really amount to much.
Right.
You're going to be working a dead end job your whole life.
Yeah.
And that's just such a false narrative.
Unless you're a terrible worker, then it's completely accurate.
But it'd be accurate with a college degree as
Exactly.
well. It won't make a difference. College isn't gonna. I don't think college is gonna make you, what do I say, prosperous in anything if you're a bad worker. So people think if I go to college, I won't have to work.
Yeah. I don't have to work hard. I have a degree.
What does that say about college? I got a degree in not working hard. That's my degree. I understand when people say, "Well, I don't want to fill airplanes every day."
Right.
But there's a path through filling airplanes that gets you to where you're not filling airplanes every day.
Right. Yeah. When I took the job, my intention wasn't even to get a general manager spot. I would have liked to get a promotion to put on my resume. I thought it would look nice. But it was, okay, I'm going to do this until I find out exactly what I want to do. One of the things was I was debating on being a physical therapist. And that just didn't pan out for different reasons. But, I mean, it worked out well for right now, at least. So that's what I encourage all my employees. Like, you may not want to stay here. That's fine. But you work hard. You build your work ethic. And you can either get a promotion here or you take it to your next job and you just keep that work ethic up, and you'll get somewhere eventually. Even if you do go to college, you're going to get a job after college, hopefully, and you have a degree now, and you have a degree with a good work ethic, and you can get bumped up even faster. But a lot of people is just talking to a wall, though. Like, I'm not interested in this job, therefore I won't work hard. But
do you think those people would ever work hard in any job, though?
No, I really don't. I don't know what it would take for them. Actually, one thing I have seen is actually whenever the young men become fathers, a lot of them, actually every single one of them that I've had, every single one of them have turned into great workers.
Once they have that responsibility.
Right. Once they realize, oh no, I'm responsible for another human being. Like, their whole mindset changes. It's pretty amazing to see, actually.
Well, then I need to start a breeding program for my workers.
Well, it only works for a certain amount of time. Eventually, they go back to their old ways. No, I'm not sure about that. But
That is interesting. Men are interesting in that women seem to mature with time.
Yeah.
So and it's probably because of what they call their biological clock. So they know that they have a very small window of time to be able to achieve whatever they want to achieve. Whether it's to get to college, they have to do that before they have children, or not. It gets very, very difficult.
Right.
They want to get a career and establish themselves. They got to do that before they have children. If not, once they have children, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So I think that most women, even if they're not consciously aware, they all have this biological awareness that time is clicking away very quickly for them. And then, if they want to have children, they have to do that within a very small window of time, relatively speaking,
right.
in order for that to work out. And so they're like on a clock from the time they hit puberty. It's like they're aware, tick, 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 tick. And I don't think that most of them sit around thinking about it consciously. Would never say, well, it's because I'm on, the clock is
Right.
ticking for me. But I think that they just know this to be the fact. It's inherent in them. And so women just mature with time. Men don't mature with time. That my experience is. It's like,
Not for the most part.
no, I mean,
Especially when you get them together.
like you have guys who are prematurely mature, let's say, right? They're mature early in their age, but they just happen to be that way. But men, generally speaking, you can have an 80-year-old guy who's completely immature,
Yeah.
and that's very odd to find in a woman. Very odd to find a woman who's 30 who's immature.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But what seems like, going to your point you're making, is that what makes men mature is that responsibility. So marriage and children.
Yeah.
I mean, that just like grows them up very quickly.
Yeah, it's one thing I think about, actually. Anytime I have to write someone up or something like that, I kind of put myself in their shoes. Like, if I got written up and I had to go home, and I would assume he would have that conversation with his wife, like, hey, this happened today, like, I messed up, like, how demeaned I would feel, and just like how much of a failure I would feel, like, to have to tell my wife, like, I didn't do my job well today because I didn't want to, basically. Like, there's no way I can approach my wife and tell her that, like, yeah, we're gonna have some trouble with our bills because I just got fired. Well, what happened? How'd you get fired? It's like, I wasn't paying attention. Like, what? Get out of here, you idiot.
But I think that men need that sense of accountability. I think that's one of the very important roles. That's why it kind of irks me of Christianity, especially fundamentalist Christianity, and their view of women and the role of women in life and marriage and church and everything, is that they think they want to say how women are the helpmeet, and what they mean by that, often, not everyone, but often mean by that, is that women are the ones that are supposed to wash the clothes and cook the meals and whatever, right? The domestic duties. And I'm not denying, obviously I agree with that message. I am I don't even know where I'm going with this. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Now that I say that out loud, that
is what they're for.
That
right?
is what they're for. No, but seriously, when I see what the Bible's talking about, a helpmeet, I think it's that the most important thing that a wife brings to the table in a marriage is accountability. Is to hold my wife, to hold me accountable, and to call me on my nonsense. Call me on the nonsense, the lies that I'll tell myself, right? Because I'm inherently immature. So because I'm inherently lazy, which I think is true about men in general, not every single man, but men in general, they're inherently lazy, they're inherently irresponsible, they're inherently immature, and we tell ourselves lies to justify those things, to excuse them.
Right.
We tell ourselves that we're tired. We tell ourselves that we have other values. We tell ourselves that we're, saving ourselves to not be worn out when we're old. I mean, we have all these lies we tell ourselves. We're spiritual, and that's why we don't care if we have no money, right? We tell ourselves these things, and they make tons of sense in our head when we say them. It's like when I sing in my head, it's always on key.
Is it?
It is.
That's interesting.
I know, it's frustrating because in my head I can like hear it so perfect.
I have
And
that
then when
same
it comes
problem.
out, it's like, where did that voice go?
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I was like, man, if I could just get that out, it would just be like, and everyone would weep. It would be, and they do. They weep, but not the kind of weeping that I.
Yeah, we do. We do. It's very emotional for us.
Right. So you tell yourself these lies in your and in your head they sound so good, they sound so right, so reasonable, and they're and you need somebody to call you on them.
Yeah.
You need someone to say, no, this is not acceptable. This isn't right. And that is what, to me, is what the real helpmeet is about, more than anything else.
Yeah.
And I think that, men who don't want their wives to criticize them are missing out on the true value it is to have someone in that position. I mean, that's a hard thing to find. Imagine what you would have to pay to get somebody who would invest enough time to know you so intimately that they could give you the type of criticism that you desperately need.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people pay thousands, tens of thousands more to go to a psychiatrist over a long period of time to develop an intimate relationship with a psychiatrist. Obviously, I don't mean sexual, but an intimate where they know you intimately, so that then they can have the insight to tell you what you could get from your wife today for free, right? In fact, she might even pay to say it. She'd be so happy. You like, tell me the most brutal, honest thing you can tell me, and she'd be like, I'll pay you for that. I'll give you money for that. Yes, exactly. And so when I don't think Christians are the only ones guilty of minimizing women, but I think Christians are the ones that have no excuse for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is a balance there too, ladies. We don't need to know everything that we do wrong all the time.
Yes, pick the top 10. Give me my top 10 list.
Exactly.
And then you have to stop. You can't trail off. No ellipses. It's like 10 things, 10 action items.
Yeah.
And stop. Yeah, and so when men get married, I think they, if you get a wife who's smart, which hopefully you do, and insightful, and then you're willing to have her, because if you have a marriage that's biblical, then there's no reasonable reason why a woman would want to berate or want to hurt her husband, because she's tied into this. Right. I mean, they're like in it for to the death. I mean, that's in the vows.
Right.
To the death is in the vows. Right. And so you would, why, a woman, when she realizes that, is like, I want him to be the best he can be. I don't want him to be the worst he can be. And so that becomes an opinion that to me is very trustworthy. It's very reliable.
Yeah.
And men ought to be more open to it.
Yeah, I think that's the difficult part, is the men being open to it. Because it is difficult telling someone, especially someone that you love, to where you can make that vow. Like, hey, you're messing up here. Like, you're failing at these points. I mean, it is difficult to bring it up. At the beginning, at least.
Oh, it's brutal.
It gets easier in time, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the only bad thing is it gets easier when you're mad, which is the wrong time.
Yeah,
right?
That's exactly the wrong time.
Yeah, it's the wrong time. Then it's like lashing out. But to do it like you say, just come and say, hey, I love you, but I need to tell you that you're messing up, or you're being irresponsible, or you're being lazy, and you get off your butt and quit making excuses and get yourself a job, or start. You're whining, you're not getting a promotion, but you're not. Yeah. Most likely you're just not putting out the effort that you should put out, which is true in most cases. Yeah. The idea that companies, and I know they're out there, I know that they exist, but there's very few that, in my experience, that are not looking to promote people.
No, yeah, I think there's very, very few.
How many companies are honestly looking to hire the lowest paid person they can find?
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
No, not at all.
I'm not. They're like, you just want everyone to be a laborer. No. I have almost zero use for laborers. I can sweep the floor after we're done.
That's an easy job.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't mind at all sweeping. Like, whatever, you load the car.
That's what seems
sweep.
so crazy to me, is that when it's time to clean up, it's like that's when people are like being all lazy about it.
I know.
I'm like, I would love to just get paid what I get paid. Don't carry a broom. I mean, that sounds amazing.
Well, I think the issue is you're doing the job and you're seeing the end line being everything. All the stalls are put up, and then whenever you put the last stall up, and then oh man, I forgot we got it. Not I forgot, but like oh yeah, we got to clean now. It's like my son and I have been doing landscaping, and we'd get home finally after doing a few jobs, and I look in the back of the truck. It's like and I always tell my son, like, this is the worst part of all the jobs, because you get home and you're thinking, okay, we're finally home, we're done. Like, no, we got to unload all this stuff now. And
yes,
it is a pretty.
It is. I can see it two ways. So one is like with you and me, right? No one's paying me then to do that. That's just part of the expense that's built into
Right.
that. But I look at my employees; they're getting paid by the hour,
Yeah, they're on
and
the
I pay them the same amount
That's a good point.
to sweep at the end as I did to carry the panels up the stairs. I would be like, oh, you're going to pay me $20 an hour to sweep?
Yeah.
Can I sweep the whole building? Can I sweep the street around the building?
Yeah.
I'd be like, this is great. This is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to have a hard time getting people to stay at work for their 8 hours, because they'll finish their flights and they have nothing for the last 2 hours. And we tell them, no, we need someone to stick around in case something happens.
Right.
You know, we could have a diversion, which is an aircraft that's not supposed to come in that lands, and we need someone to fuel it. I don't want to do that. Like, I'm paying you to sit here, and we have a TV there with probably 500 movies, not even exaggerating. Like, you just sit there and watch a movie, and you're getting paid. Like,
You're on the clock watching a movie.
I just want to go home. It's like,
And what's crazy, you know, that's we share so many experience in this. What's crazy also about that is they're not only getting paid, they're on the clock.
yeah,
Which means they're racking up their overtime if they ever work over 8 hours.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so if they take off 2 hours early, you don't just lose. This is what people that work as employees often don't understand. When you take off 2 hours on a day, you think, well, I'm only getting paid, let's say $10 an hour, just to make it easy. So I'm only losing 20. No, you're losing 15 an hour.
Yep.
You just lost your overtime.
Yeah.
That's what you lost.
Yeah, and it's
So-
that day that you worked extra and you're probably worn out and you
Yeah.
worked 8 hours. Like, we got another 2. So
Yes,
those are the harder worked hours.
that's right. That's the money you
Yeah.
lost. You lost the overtime. You lost $15 an hour. Yeah. That's what people don't realize. They're like, it's just $10 an hour. No. You lost your overtime. And if you only work 10 hours more a week, you what is it? You add 40% to your paycheck. I think that's the number. You work 10 hours more a week.
Is that what it is?
I have to look it up. I forget what the number is. But it's a lot of money. You add a lot more money to your paycheck than just the extra hour a day or hour and a half a day you work extra.
Yeah, I look at hourly rates. And we look at some of these guys like, oh, we should get paid $1 more an hour. It's like, that's $40 a week. What are you going to do with that? Just work a little bit of overtime. Stop whining about the $1 extra. Maybe it'll come up, maybe it won't. But there's something you could do right now.
Yeah, and that's the way you get the extra $1 or more.
Right.
You do like what you did.
Right, exactly.
You work 20, 30 hours of overtime. You never complain. Anytime they say, hey, we need someone, you're like, you don't have to hear the end of the sentence. Like, that's me.
Yeah.
I want the time. I'll do it. And you be the most productive you can be in that time. You don't drag it out.
Yeah.
You can be the most productive you can during that time. It seems counterintuitive to someone working by the hour. You think, well, if I'm working by the hour, I should drag things out and make them take longer.
Right.
That way I get paid more. That is a short-term goal. That is a
Very
short-term.
short-term.
Yeah. You need to think long-term. Do the most you can do in the less amount of time possible. Take all the overtime you can. What will that do? Well, you'll get a lot of overtime pay immediately. And you'll start getting, people will say, hey, let's pay him more.
Yeah. And you gain so much experience to it.
Yes.
That's what helped me get my first promotion, actually. Actually, 2 of the people that put in for that first promotion with me actually trained me. So they were furious whenever I got the job over me. And they were decent workers. They weren't terrible. I mean, they had their flaws, but I did not expect myself to get it. I just thought I'd throw my hat in the race, and see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty interesting how much experience and how all that combines together. Like, this guy works hard. He's always here, and he knows how to do everything because he's always here. So it all adds up.
It does, and it's The best way I think to look at it in this type of work, which isn't like, college degrees or even trade schools, you're just going to work, is that you have to look at the job you're doing as your school. You're actually learning, right? And you take it that way. And so you try to do everything you possibly can. You take every course available.
There you go.
Right? And so it's whatever it is you're doing. It doesn't matter what job you're in. Anything you see, they need something somewhere, other department needs help, go do it. Learn how to do that.
Yeah.
The more you know, the more essential you are to that business.
Yeah.
And the more you can demand and pay.
Yeah.
And by demand, I don't mean like, say, I'm leaving if you don't pay me.
Yeah.
Even though there may be a time, some companies you have to deal with that way. I understand, right? They won't promote you unless you ask for it, which whatever. But what I mean by is you can command that pay, right? Even if they're wanting to, you can, when they're like, we can't lose this person, this guy or this girl, no matter anywhere we need help in the department, anywhere we need, we can send them, and they could, and so if you learn that, then you can become, have the ability to manage in any different area. And that just makes your value for a company skyrocket. And that's what companies want.
Yeah.
The idea that they don't want that they want people dumb and ignorant and low paid, that's like such a Hollywood trope.
Yeah.
Right? That these evil companies, they just want to keep everyone low paid. That is so stupid.
Yeah.
It's so unrealistic.
Ridiculous. There's no benefit in that for the company. I mean, it seems like there is. We can keep the costs down and things like this, but
the most expensive thing you have is a low-paid employee.
Yeah,
they make so many messes.
It makes my job a lot harder.
I know. It's like I would, and obviously paying. You're like, well, then pay them more. Well, that doesn't fix their problems, right? if it
doesn't make them a better worker.
No, but that's what I always tell people. Like, I have almost no use for a $15 an hour guy. Someone that's 15, that's like almost useless to me.
Wow.
It's like, I've hired, I wouldn't say I have anyone now, but I've hired people and like, okay, I'll pay you 15. But I tell them, but it's like useless to me. There's you can't do anything. And I need someone who's like a $25. If I could find some $25 an hour guys or $30 an hour, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to find someone that's worth that amount of money.
I can find people who want $30 an hour. Yeah, they're all like,
I got you.
Here am I. Send me. But someone who actually can just produce, and that means that person can produce $60 an hour. Yeah. If they can produce $60 an hour, I can pay them $30.
Yeah. Which
is good wages when you don't know anything.
That's a really good wage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our guys aren't making close to $15 an hour, actually.
That's the secret of, the little secret of the type of construction I'm in. There's money in there to be made, and I could pay it if I had guys that were willing to invest the time to learn what we do. So, like toilet partitions is the hardest thing we do. We do a lot of other stuff, and that's the worst paid thing we do, but it's the hardest thing we do. But it takes on average probably a year to learn how to do them. Probably takes
correctly
a full
and quickly,
year.
You mean?
Just to know how to do them.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't take that long to learn them.
Well, we're still waiting for that.
You're right, you didn't.
I'm speaking of the averages. We're not talking about the ones who take 3 years. That's the extreme. No, not everyone. Like I said, that's the average.
Yeah, I guess so.
And it's the high average.
I don't think you have anybody that's learned them in a year.
No. Don was less than a year.
Don was less than a year.
He could do them in less than a year.
I did
about 6 months.
One night sitting on a car.
Oh, we're going to hear this lie again.
He goes...
Now, let me ask you, was that before or after the Baptist student ministries that we did the other day?
Well, that's not the story.
That was the exception.
That's something different. We're not going to talk about that.
No, even though I've been doing them for like 15 years, and I basically invented the way we do them, right? Because nobody showed me how to do it that way, and nobody does them that way. So I basically invented the method we use.
Very cool.
I still mess them up all the time. It's just there's so many ways to mess them up. There's crazy. So many ways to get them wrong.
We did a little stall job. There's only like 6 pilasters. I messed up every single one of them.
Why, once you're 4 in, why stop? It's like,
And I messed
put
up.
your head down and,
finish it.
and just get it through.
And I messed up one of them twice.
3 times.
3 times.
Oh.
Yeah, 3 times.
The same one did it wrong 3 times in a row. It looks like Swiss cheese. There's holes everywhere.
Those are breathing holes.
Thinking in there.
They're terrible. Yeah, so it takes a year. So, but if you can learn them, there's people everywhere paying people. They're just begging for people to come do their work for them. I mean, there's just so little competition in this field. Nobody does them. Nobody does them right.
Yeah.
And there's companies from all the way from Dallas to Laredo who are begging for anyone to show up with a drill, say, I know how to do toilet partitions. They would be in business immediately.
Yeah. Immediately
have their own business. They're so desperate that they won't even require you to have your own insurances. They will pay your insurances for you getting started. I've heard them, companies I work for, tell people, I will hire you. I will provide your insurance. I'll provide you a vehicle sometimes. I'll loan you this vehicle. I just need someone that can install this stuff. So, you come work for me for a year. You learn how to do it, and you could have your own business and be doing this. And you're talking about, if you and an employee doing toilet partitions, you probably make $120,000 a year.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, just taking a year, and you get paid like $15 an hour to learn.
Yeah.
That'd be like saying a college, say, look, come here for 4 years. We'll pay you $12 an hour that you're here, and we'll give you a career.
Yeah.
That is what these type of trades are offering for people to come in and do. That's what you got.
Yeah, pretty much is what
you didn't pay a penny to get the training you needed in order to be a general manager at an airport.
Yeah, the funny thing is whenever they posted the job, I basically had it already, unless someone off the wall came on that wanted to transfer or something like that. But on the posting, it said college degree is required. And
they never asked for it, or what?
No, I told the vice president, like, I don't have a college degree. He's like, don't worry about it. All right. Well, cool. I did the job for about a year.
Well, see, that's a good.
Also.
That's right. That's a good. A good thing that people need to realize that. I hear a lot of people. Well, I don't apply because it says college degree.
Put in.
Put in. What are they going to say? You think they're going to send out the college police?
Yeah. Let me see it.
Shame.
We have an infiltrator. Send out the shock troops. I mean, what are they going to do? The worst they're going to do is say, "Sorry, you're declined." Okay, whatever.
Just go visit Incarnate Word and say, "I went to Incarnate Word."
Yeah, I've been to almost every college in the state.
That's impressive.
I have worked in. And I have taught.
I have taught in every college.
I have taught in every college also. Yeah, exactly.
It was in the bathroom, but I taught.
Yeah, it wasn't anything you get a credit for. I teach toiletology.
Yeah, you should hand out diplomas anytime you do it at a college.
It should look like a toilet seat, a toilet seat diploma. You are hereby certified in toiletology.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. A monkey could do your job.
Do I get paid more now?
No, the state of affairs with the kids today is just terrible. Yeah. Terrible. They're being given terrible information. They're being marketed to college, which I think is incredibly false marketing being used. Incredible, terrible misinformation. And they're not being presented any options, and the parents are duped or complicit.
Yeah. And they're pressured also. I think a lot of parents feel pressured. Like, your child's 5 years old. Have you started a college fund? Like, no, I don't even know if he wants. I don't know if he's smart enough to go to college. Let's be honest here. If he's anything like me, probably save that money. He's gonna need it.
Yeah. See, I think that parents should. I've told parents for a long time, or for a while now, that what they need to do when their kid is born, they need to take $5,000 and they need to put it in a mutual fund. Mm-hmm. If they can swing it, if they can get, or $2,000 or whatever they can do. Mm-hmm. And if every parent would do that, would put $5,000 in a mutual fund when their kid is born, the kid will retire a millionaire if he never does a thing in his life. You don't even have to add money to it.
That's interesting.
All you have to do is take $5,000 a day they're born, put it in a mutual fund, and they'll retire with over $1 million. If you never add a penny to it, if you add every day and every year, instead of giving them a ridiculous birthday party and stupid birthday presents, which is a whole nother subject, if you would just take that money or a portion of that money, if you're weak, right, and you take that and put that in that mutual fund, they will retire a multimillionaire. That's better than college.
A little bit. I don't know. You don't have that piece of paper.
That's true. That paper's worth a lot of money.
It is worth a ton of money. Another thing that's interesting is trade schools. Actually, Nolan told me about this with the HVAC, the AC companies. They will actually pay for your schooling and everything.
Your certifications, your ongoing
And you're
certifications.
working.
And you're making a
and-
paycheck.
yeah,
While you're working.
making-
Same way with electricians. If you want to be an electrician, they'll do the same thing. Plumbers will do the same thing.
That's insane.
Yeah. You don't. People that are paying to go to trade school. I mean, I would say I'm going to try to put this very nicely. I support the thinking outside the box. You're like, we don't have to just go to college. There's trade schools. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, trade schools are a scam.
Really?
Yes, they're a scam. There is not a single thing that you're going to learn in a trade school that you're paying to go do that you cannot get being paid to do it.
Yeah, you're just getting that
Because
paper.
they will put you in the school. You'll get the paper or whatever.
So you mean paying for your own trade school is a scam?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
You saying, I need to go to trade school, that way I can come out and go find a job. No, don't.
No.
That's the wrong way to do it. There's these schools out there that they advertise on television during the daytime hours when all the losers are at home, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I'm not doing it today.
You just now there's a couple things that you actually have to go to school first. Like I don't think you can get into like avionics mechanics without going to school first. I don't think they'll hire you.
Actually, they will.
They will?
They
Then
use-
I'm mistaken. Then there is nothing.
But you can't sign off on the work. So
Well, of course.
a licensed person
Same way
has
with
to check it
electrician.
and sign off on the work. Yeah.
Same way with electrician. Well, then I must. Then there's nothing left. Then it is not my opinion. This is empirical fact.
Breaking news.
You've wasted your money. No, like you say, man, I want to be an electrician. Go get a job as an electrician. What will you be doing? You'll be pulling wire out of to recycle out of stuff that they've torn down. You'll be passing up things. You'll be pulling wire through conduit.
You
You'll
know
be doing
what
that stuff.
most electricians are doing now?
What's
Since
that?
they have the bigger crews, they just stick one of their lowest paid guys in the elevator or run the elevator.
Oh, is that who's running the
That's
elevators
who
now?
runs the elevators
Now you
now.
want to see because a lot of electricians are paying prevailing wages. So if you're working as an electrician, you're probably getting 15 to 17 an hour, depending on the job. If you're working at an Alamo college, the minimum wage you're going to make as an electrician, and maybe even 19 an hour. I have to look it up, but it's prevailing wage. So they're paying prevailing wage, most of them. So imagine you're getting paid 15 an hour, and all you do is stand in the elevator and push the button.
That's difficult.
Yeah.
What if you forget what floor and you take the guy to the wrong floor? That's a lot of stress.
There's a lot of stress. Yeah, I mean, it's just there's tremendous opportunities out there, and anyone who's struggling, and they can't make ends meet. It's like I understand not everyone wants to work out in the sun. I don't want to work in the sun. I don't like carrying toilet partitions around, but what's the option? Be poor and complain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like-
That's the option. Or you can work at McDonald's.
Right, and
Which actually is probably better to work outside because back there is not.
no,
It's in the AC, but
that's
it's-
rough work.
That is rough work.
It is rough work, but and I don't think McDonald's is a dead end job. I think if you work hard, you move up, you become manager. I mean, there's a lot of people have done very well for themselves
Yeah, absolutely.
working there, and that's certainly I wouldn't discourage anyone. I'm just saying that especially for men, there is just and women actually get in easier into construction than men nowadays. Yeah. There's companies now, not every company, but there are companies that are very woke, and they are very intent on hiring women into their. So like electricians, you can get in real easy as a woman.
That's interesting.
And with the bigger companies, which are the better ones, where you're going to get, you get into the big electrical companies, you're going to get good wages, you're going to get benefits, health insurance. I mean, they have all of that.
Yeah. I actually like hiring women. Well, a certain type of woman.
Mm-hmm.
The woman that will call the guys out on being wusses. so satisfying to me to hear a guy complaining about, oh, I did 3 flights in a row, I'm so worn out, and then for this lady, half their size, like, what are you complaining about? I did 4 flights back to back. Like, oh, it's so satisfying. It's so great.
Yeah, that goes back to what we were saying. There's nothing that kicks a man into gear than the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Well, how did I act when Anna came to the States? When she first came to the States.
Well, you were like oblivious the whole time. From the time you went down to Mexico and turned to jelly, all your convictions ran out of you like water out of a leaky bucket. He's like, I'm not gonna get married. He just melted like an Eskimo sandwich on a Texas on a summer sidewalk. Yeah. Yeah, it was demoralizing to see that whole scene with him and Anna down there. Anyways, from there until after he got married, it was like I was paying him just to pay him. It was pure mercy because he wasn't worth anything. He was just like,
I don't remember those days, like at work. I don't remember what was going on, what we were doing.
Wow.
Like,
That's
it's all
interesting.
blurred, like that whole time.
How long was that?
That was about 3 months.
Yeah, no, it was.
People were asking him, like, what's the deal with Noah?
Yeah, and I said,
He's in love.
I said he's gonna be. Just imagine he's on vacation, but on a vacation where he ruins everything you own. It's that kind of vacation. A vacation where he drills holes everywhere he shouldn't. Just imagine that kind of a vacation. Yeah, you were worthless.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all. He tells me that I was, and that people were wondering about me. And I don't remember
You don't remember doing good, bad?
Nothing.
Do you
Like,
remember going to work at all?
I remember coming home, like rushing home. Like I was speeding down that driveway and I was going fast. That's all I remember.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was good times.
And then, and so what did you notice the difference of, like from how you were, how you saw yourself before you got married and after you got married? Did you feel like a big kick of reality after getting married? Like now you had to.
Yeah, I think I felt more of yeah, I guess it was more pressure. That's how I felt pressure. I had to make more money. I know that. I wasn't making enough. I don't know how people make it with making $15 an hour with 5 kids and 6 different women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't understand it. I was like, we were like, oh boy, and I didn't do anything. I did a lot of stupid stuff when we got married. I got an apartment paying like $1,200 a month.
Oh no!
I need a good. I tried to talk to him, but he's like, no, I need a nice place.
Yeah.
My wife needs a castle.
Yeah.
You know who she is?
So I don't. That didn't help.
Yeah.
But still, that's not like we didn't have any kids, and we were still like, and we weren't great at saving money. But still, I felt a lot of pressure to make money.
Yeah. That pressure to provide is definitely there.
And then what was it like once you had a child? What's that been like?
It was now that he's born, it's not too bad because I'm making more money than I used to. So I don't feel pressure at all now. It's fine now. But before he was born, paying for the doctor bills.
Oh man!
Because I had no insurance. That was expensive.
Yeah.
Holy moly, that was super expensive. I had to pay. I think I ended up paying $15,000 or more.
Man.
Probably more. Yeah, because I'm still getting bills.
Still?
I get $400, $500. All these different people that touched him, apparently, sending me their bill for
You challenge
coming
them?
into the room. Yes. I say I'm not paying that. They'll say, we're just going to keep sending them. Great. I love to put stuff in my trash can. I'm not paying that. People are crazy. Because they don't even say anything with them. They'll say, look on page 2 for itemized, and then they'll say, bill $400. So
That's their itemized.
That's itemized.
That's itemized. They just put it again on the second page. I don't pay.
They do that. You got to watch out. Those they're terrible.
Yeah, I say you send me exactly what he did, and what I'm paying for, I'll pay it. I don't have no problem doing that. I said, I don't mind paying what I owe, but I want to know what I'm paying for. I said, yeah, I know how y'all work. You're a bunch of scammers.
Bunch of scammers.
They are scammers.
They are. They're terrible.
If you're in people who have insurance or have health insurance don't realize how it works. But if you're laying in the hospital bed and some other doctor who's not your doctor walks in the room and says, "Hey, Mr. Wiseman, how you doing?" He picks up your chart. You think, "Oh, this is the greatest hospital. They all care about me."
Yeah.
He is going to bill you.
Your insurance,
Those doctors will go around and do that. They'll hit 10 or 12 rooms on their way out of the hospital.
Get
for
that
the
new
day.
Tesla.
That's right. And it's just a scam. And they're not, and they honestly are not trying to scam you personally.
Right.
They assume you have insurance and they're going to bill the insurance. The insurance just pays it all. They don't challenge it. They just pay it, apparently. And so they do that. They'll go at 10, 12 bed every day and bill $400 a piece just to walk in, and they don't do anything. They just say, "How you doing?" They look at your chart. I doubt they really read it. And then they put it back and they leave.
Thinking about something. Like, should I get a red one or a blue one? All right, have a good day. That'll work.
Yeah, it's a terrible system. Insurance is corrupt.
Insurance. They're all corrupt.
Well, I find it interesting. I had some dental work done, and I don't have dental insurance. And I was like, this is going to cost a lot. We went to Mexico originally and got some stuff done, but I couldn't. It just didn't make sense to go back and forth. So like, I'll just do it here. So I got an implant, a tooth implant, and it cost me $1,000 out of pocket. So I looked at the insurance plan that that my company offers, and it would have cost me $3,000 with insurance.
Oh my!
So it's
goodness.
cheaper to have no. Like, how does that?
How does that even work?
I have no idea how that works. It's terrible.
That is.
We'll give you a cheaper rate if you don't have insurance.
Well, they do.
They do. That's
absolutely
that
right.
was when Eldon was born. So they basically had the no insurance plan, which that is prompt pay. That is, you pay right now the moment he's born. Like, we're coming into your room. If you don't pay before he's born, we're coming into the room the day he's born. If you don't pay it then you're gonna pay.
We'll put them back.
You're gonna pay
We'll
what
put
it
him back.
really costs.
Yeah, you lose the discount.
Yeah, you lose that, and by a lot too.
Really?
A lot. So I think for his birth only, for the room, I think it was $4,000. They tell you $4,000, but then you get more bills later. That's how they are. But I think total around $6,000.
Man,
which isn't bad. I mean, I would hope not. I don't know what they would have charged me if I didn't pay prompt pay.
It's a lot of money.
It would have been a lot, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, and you looked into other options, right?
Oh, I was gonna do so. I went to this hippie, dippy, weird place where you having it in a bathtub.
oh goodness.
It's like
It's no doctors
no
there.
doctors. It's what do they call them? Those mothers, the midwives.
Midwives.
Yes, that's what it is.
So it's these midwives, and it's a super strange place. Made me feel all weird. I mean, she's super nice. They're all really nice, you know.
Right.
A little too nice.
Little too nice. Like, they want the whole family in the room. I'm like, first of all, I don't even want to be in the room, and I don't want to know my family in there too. That's super
I don't know
weird.
anyone that's raising their hand to watch any of that.
Yeah,
I'll go.
and so none of my family's like that. You
I'm
know?
like, I saw Alien. That was enough.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the
But that's
PG
cheap.
version of it too.
that's real cheap. That's super cheap. That's up front. You pay the money. I forget how much. $4,000, right up front. You pay that.
But if
and they
anything
handle
goes
everything.
wrong-
anything goes wrong, you still pay the $4,000, and then they take you to the hospital, which then you're paying the ambulance, the hospital bills, the $6,000 for the anesthesiologist because you didn't schedule him.
Oh yeah.
So you're paying for his time to
Emergency.
get out of bed and go stick a needle in somebody's back.
Yeah, I did it myself for Jessica. It was a lot cheaper. DIY anesthesia. It's worked out well.
Well, I told Anna I'm practically a surgeon.
That's right.
I
No,
don't know why no one wants to take me up on this. Everyone wants to whine. You all want to whine about your medical bills. And I'm telling you, I have the table. The
You need a
podcast.
hospital
I
bed for
made this.
$1,000.
Look how I made the table.
That's pretty
I
cool.
made
if you
it
can see
for
it. No.
to do double as my operating table. I have the scalpels. I got what I need, and I've done successful surgery. I'm batting 1,000.
Wow, that's impressive.
I know. I've never lost a patient.
Goodness. That's scary.
Oh man, yeah. Kids change men a lot. They make them. But most men, in general, I would say, it seems that we seem to be losing some of that though. It's like they scatter their kids all over the world, all over the place. Now they got baby mamas everywhere, and it's this mess. And the whole child support thing is just like brutal now. I mean, I'm not against it. I'm not saying fathers shouldn't. I'm just saying that it's a huge mess. I deal with it as an employer.
Yep. It's a mess. And seeing what percentage people are getting.
50% for most of some of the people that work for me. Not all of them have child support, but some of them do. And ones that have worked for me do, and almost all of them are paying 50% of their income. It's like
crazy.
I don't even know how they do it.
Yeah.
And then they end up what ends up happening is they end up quitting and going to work under the table, getting cash under the table, cash gigs. So then they're not paying anything.
Yeah.
And then they get further behind. The way
they make it is that they just live with other baby mamas that are getting 50% of somebody else's income. That's how it works.
They pass it around.
just pass it around.
That money.
I give you 50%, you give me 50%. It sounds like socialism.
Oh, it's so crazy. And I don't know a solution. It's not like, I mean, what's the solution? Well, you can have all the kids you want, and you don't have to pay, and the mothers bear the burden, or the state bears a burden, or there's no solution. It's a mess. This whole sexual revolution has just been a disaster.
Yeah.
Complete disaster. You got these, you got kids strewn everywhere. They don't know who their daddies are. I saw a billboard not long ago where they were saying you can find out who your mother is, which is even, you think about that, that's just really crazy. I don't even know who my mama is. Mm-hmm. That's just, it's just crazy what's going on. And to me, this whole thing that has, this whole woke and this whole, I don't know, this crazy time we're in right now, where with the cancel culture and everything. To me, it's all interesting because it's like all of a sudden, all these leftists, or I wouldn't call them let's call them liberals, not far left, but not conservatives,
right?
Are all patting themselves on the back, like practically breaking their arms, patting themselves on the back so hard that like 3 years ago they predicted that this was coming. That
Well, yeah, the election's coming, so.
Yeah, well, they predicted, all this is going to get out of control 3 years ago. And I'm like, Christians have been saying this since 1900.
Yeah.
We've been saying this since 1900. There is actually a 12-volume work that was written, a series of essays by prominent Christian pastors, theologians in 1915, saying that if we don't get back to the fundamental truths of Christianity, that we are going to see that this liberalism is going to result in catastrophic ends at all points, not just doctrinally, but socially, morally, every way imaginable. That was in 1915 that Christians have been seriously predicting this happening in this country. And, 3 years ago, these liberals, these liberal professors think, well, we predicted this. Like, it was already done. This is
going to happen. No, it happened.
It's like the whole cancel thing. It's like now it's like you're not supposed to say things you won't want someone else to say about you. You're not supposed to say that about other people.
Okay.
And they're all very proud of themselves that they're all, we're woke. It's like, that's Christian doctrine.
Yeah.
You've been making fun of Christians for not wanting to smear people based on physical attributes, based on, whether they're thin or fat. Obviously, I didn't get the memo. Not wanting to talk about, make a difference in gender and treat women with dignity, respect, and equality. That's Christianity.
Yeah.
And Christians have been mocked in this liberal culture, in Hollywood especially, for 100 years or more.
Yeah.
Just mocked for being, uptight and not knowing, not having any comedic sense. And now they're like, oh no, now we're on that board. Now there can be no comedy, no jokes. We don't make jokes at people's expense. That's just how I was raised as a Christian.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. If you take away the word Christian values and put it as, some other values, left values, but they're the exact same values. Like, oh yes, this is perfect. This is what we needed this entire time. Like, it was there. You were just against it.
Yes.
Like, we called it something else, and now it's perfect. We take Christ out of it. Okay, take the Bible out of it. That is good.
Exactly.
Actually. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and then you have, with all of that, then you have the abortion industry that going back to with the kids and the whole thing of the the child support and the immorality and all that this is breeding, and then the only solution they're able to come up with is we'll just kill the babies, and then that's going to solve all the problems. And the only problem they're solving is the monetary problems for the fathers. It's so strange to me that women are so, I mean, I understand it in a way, right? So if you're a woman and you're pro-choice, then you're thinking, well, I don't want to get saddled with this child, right? As if you can get out of it.
Right.
I'm not convinced that abortion is actually a way out for a woman, because there's so much psychological baggage that comes with it.
Exactly.
But the only ones who are actually getting out of anything are these men.
Most men, yeah. There are some men that are affected by it. I would say they're the exception, for sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, the abortion topic, to me, I've searched and tried to find the other side of it as far as a reasonable reason for abortion. Mm-hmm. The only thing I can find is if the mother's life is going to end, basically, if she continues with the child. There's just health issues, whatever the case is. I think that's the only thing that I believe would
what they call health of the mother.
Right. I would say
life
yes.
of the mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't see any reason.
Yeah, and see, that one's an interesting one, and I think that, like, those that the pro-life political candidates should, I think that many of them have made serious mistakes politically by being against an exception for that in the law, to have a law that's basically no abortion allowed except for the life of the mother, and I understand why they oppose it, and in theory I oppose it as well, which I'll get to in a second. But looking at it politically, it's not a good move, because it paints them completely unreasonable in a political sense, right? And so I think that conservative politicians should all say we acknowledge this exception to it. Now, I understand why they don't want to. If you have any sense of conviction about it and you look at the research, it's almost impossible to be a purist on the matter and support it, because it becomes this huge loophole.
Yeah.
Where everything can be. This is what happens. If we passed federal law that said abortion is federally prohibited, not just turn it back to the states, but instead of the federal government allowing it, we're now going to prohibit abortion federally. It's going to be a federal crime, which is what some pro-lifers would like to see happen. They would like to see the federal government prohibit abortion federally, which you could argue the Constitution already does, because it says you can't have your life taken from you without due process.
Yeah.
So you could make a constitutional argument that is a life, and it says that your life can't be taken without due process. But anyways, let's say you have a federal law. It's federally prohibited to have an abortion, and you have this one exception for the health or life of the mother, however you want to word it. Life would obviously be more restrictive. Well, what you're going to have is you're going to have a whole industry come up.
Yeah.
Of all these doctors willing to say that it's for the life of the mother.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to find all kinds of ridiculous excuses to say, yeah, it's for the life of the mother.
You'll find doctors who will say it, just like you have doctors right now who will help you get around workers' comp claims, will help you get around whatever it is you're trying to get around.
Exactly.
Disability, retirements, and I mean, there's a whole industry, cottage industry in the medical profession that's set up to profit off of working through that loophole. And that's what you'll end up with. That is a problem with that view. You're going to end up with what is now almost never happens. I mean, when they talk about, well, you want women to die, it is such a small,
less than 0.1% or something ridiculous.
It's almost nobody. Well, if you have that type of law, you're going to find that all of a sudden it's 10%. Yeah, 10% of women are at risk of dying, right, and need an abortion to save their lives, and you'll just have doctors willing to sign off on that.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if they do it now. These doctors are used to making this sort of income, doing this particular procedure. Now you're going to rip it away from me?
Well, then you're going to get even... See, there's a lot of doctors who are unwilling to do abortions. But they would be willing to be part of the industry of skirting through the loophole if someone else was performing the abortion.
Yeah.
They'd be willing to sign off and say... And say, yes, there is a medical need. You could be adversely affected in your health by this pregnancy, and they would sign off on saying that they would prescribe an abortion, as long as they're not the pharmacists, so to speak.
Yeah,
the ones doing it.
Yeah, another argument I've heard for pro-abortion that I thought was actually a reasonable argument was, well, the foster care homes and adoption places, I mean, they're just so slammed with kids that I don't want to put my kid in that system, and the kid never gets adopted. The issue with that is as of 2017, there were 2 million couples wanting to adopt a baby. Babies are the quickest to get adopted. If any kid that I believe is over 13, it's very difficult for them to get adopted. But with 2 million families trying to adopt babies, and only less than a million now, actually, the trend is going down for abortions. Surprisingly, you would think it'd be going up.
Interesting.
Yeah, the past, I'd say 10 years, I want to say, maybe even longer, it's been trending downwards of the amount of abortions that are being performed. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we got twice as many people waiting to adopt a baby, yet there's no babies there, and these are people that can't have babies. A lot of them, the couples can't, whether it's the male's fault, the female's fault, whatever the case is, they physically cannot have a child. So I thought that was pretty interesting, because the argument makes sense until you actually dive into what the actual numbers are. And there's people they're waiting 3 to 5 years, I believe, is a wait time for a baby, to get a baby, and it's pretty
yeah. And there's also people that are adopting kids that can have kids, and they adopt more kids because they want these kids to be able to have a home. It's kind of like I don't want it to sound wrong, but it's kind of like a ministry in the sense that they think that they have a duty to try to help ameliorate the suffering of these kids and give them a home and give them a life and give them a family and a future. And
well, it's an easy way to grow the church too.
It is. They call it the Catholic way of evangelism. You have kids, you adopt kids, you bring them in as kids.
We need more people in our church.
Yeah,
I know where to find some. They won't have a choice.
There are Christians who very much see that as a form of evangelism, is adoption, is getting kids, and they will adopt them from all over the world. Bring them in. I think the problem is, aren't the adoption laws here though kind of not helpful?
It's not that they're not helpful. It makes it difficult. And when I first became privy to them, especially as the training that you have to go through, this is ridiculous. Why do we have to go through all this training? And the reasonings behind it are pretty good, actually. Number one, it makes sure that you actually want to adopt. If it was really simple to adopt, I think you would be.
Well, yeah, you would do it on Tuesday.
Exactly. We'll do it on Tuesday. I'm like, nah, I really want this.
That is true. So it filters out the ones who are there.
Exactly.
Haven't considered the. Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you don't have to jump through any hoops at all to get a kid, I mean, it's like going and filling up your car with gas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this
then
is-
then who knows how impulsive that decision might be.
I think it'd be extremely impulsive.
Yeah. Hey, you want a kit? Yeah, let's go get one.
Let's
Like you
go.
go to Walmart,
Exactly.
pick one off the shelf. We'll take this one.
This one will
Or
work.
like when I used to get dogs.
It would be similar to that. Like adopting a dog.
We were all
even.
very worried when you guys were going to have a child. We're like, oh my
I know.
goodness.
And everybody was like, "You sure?" Because we saw you with dogs.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not the same.
It's,
Trust me.
it's a practice. It's a practice
People
run.
just don't take babies for some reason. They just won't take them.
One
They'll
thing
take
that
a dog, nasty looking thing that poops everywhere, but you try to offer a baby, like, no.
yeah, it's difficult to return a baby. Returning a dog's not too difficult, or finding another person to care for it. Like, that's easier.
There's never a shortage of people wanting a stupid dog.
Yeah, that's very true. It's terrible, and it's a very impulsive thing. Like you don't think about it for 3 months. You're like, we should get a dog. Yeah, let's go tomorrow. Let's go.
Let's go get a
Super
dog. Let's
easy to
get a
go buy
dog.
one.
A month later, that was a terrible decision.
Dogs are always a terrible decision.
They are.
They always are a terrible decision.
Your mom
Unless
is
it's
gonna
unless we have
murder you by
unless you
saying
have unless you have a good green sauce for them.
that.
Then then it's the right decision
That's
at
terrible.
every time.
Your mom is gonna murder you for saying these things.
She's gonna abort you. No, one thing with the adoption system that was really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Is the cost. How much would you guys think an adoption costs? I don't know if you've looked into it at all.
I'm going to say they're very cheap in the United States. That'd be my guess. So I'm going to say a couple $100 in actual money they had to put out, like in
Yeah.
fees. Is that anywhere close? Or am I wrong?
I would say it's about 1,200 from start to finish.
That's pretty accurate, actually. If you're going through the state,
Right.
the state has
Private adoption is more expensive, isn't it?
It's crazy expensive, and surprisingly, those are the ones that are looking for babies, and you're talking anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000, and there's 2 million of those families trying to do that, like actively
So
trying
when you
to
go
do
through
it.
the state, do you get babies there, or do you get?
You can. There's not a lot of them, because when you do the private sector, from my understanding at least, is the if my wife and I were trying to adopt a baby and the mother's still pregnant, we would be paying those doctor bills.
Right.
Basically, you're encouraging the mother to do the best thing possible for the baby at that point, because in essence, it's your baby
Right.
in her womb, so you're taking care of that.
She becomes like a surrogate.
Exactly. But through the state, they're, I don't like the term, but they're state property. So
Yeah.
you're
They're
taking over state property.
They're not state property. I think the term is they're the ward of the state.
There you go. Yeah, that's
they're
what
a
it
ward
is.
of the state.
Yeah. So
We're becoming state property, all of us. But
yeah, that's where we're heading. That's
yes,
for
that's
sure.
where we're heading.
Yeah, that's scary. But yeah, once I found out, like, this is all it costs to adopt a child. Like, I think a lot more people should know this. I think especially if you're pro-life, but have not even, I guess better said it, if you're staunchly pro-life and you're saying that there's no excuse for you to terminate a life, I think every family should at least evaluate themselves. Like, can we bring in a child into our home to help with this? Number one, to get rid of that narrative of, well, look at all the kids in foster care or in the system in general.
Right.
So, and that's one thing that really led us to think about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because it's kind of like saying, let's put your money, if you will, or your put your life where your mouth is. So
Yeah.
you're going to talk about this issue and you're going to preach on it and say, oh, that shouldn't be happening. Then it seems like someone who's I would say, especially those who are really militantly pro-life. It is interesting that you don't find that. I don't know. I would like to know how many those that are so, like, on Facebook, you see it constantly, like very militantly pro-life, constantly preaching it, and I wonder how many of them have adopted a child.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Also, the numbers of abortions is pretty interesting as far as who's getting an abortion.
Who is?
They say it's I think it was 60% if I remember correctly. I don't have the year of this, but I know it was before, after 2010, was 60% of them are women that already have children and are part of some sort of religious sector, whether it's Christianity, Muslim, whatever the case is. And I thought that to be very, very.
So you're saying that 60% are
abortions that are occurring.
Are women who already have children and are religious.
Yeah.
How's that?
I don't understand this, the reasons behind it, but you would think it would be teenage women that made a mistake and you know, got drunk or whatever the case was, and whatever happened to them. But by the numbers, that's not actually what's happening.
Man.
And that's why I believe the abortion is just this number one evil thing, that if they already have a child, they're already caring for them. They most likely have a place already, I would assume, or in some sort of relationship. They have a family already. So adding another child to it shouldn't be as much of a burden as a 16-year-old girl that was just stupid one night.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's kind of depressing, actually.
Yeah.
That is very interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that, as I'm curious. Then what's driving that? What is the actual psychology that is driving that type of, that choice?
I'm sure there's some pressures there. You already have 3 kids. We're struggling financially. We don't want to. I mean, this is all speculation.
Yeah, I understand.
You don't want to. Have to get a cheaper car now because the extra child's going to cost more, so therefore we can't live this lifestyle anymore. That's the logic that makes sense to me, at least.
That is very interesting. I'm going to have to do some research on that and try to figure that out, because that's just very, very strange to me that's who's the main contingent driving the issue. One of the problems that I find, and I think a lot of people see this, this isn't my innovation or insight, but one of the problems that I don't think gets dealt with or discussed seriously enough by anti-abortionists is it's such a they make it out, to me, the pro-life movement has a tendency to make this out to be way too simple of a solution.
Yeah.
Right? It's like let's make abortion illegal. And they think, well, and then they'll put out all these crimes that, are illegal, these things that are illegal, like murder and stealing and these things, and they're like, these are illegal, and these are very different. A long time ago, a person told me, in a discussion I had on abortion, told me, it was an email, and he wrote me, and he put a line that said, it's nearly impossible to protect a child from his mother, right? Oh. It's the moms who are wanting to get the abortion.
Yeah.
Right? They're not being forced by the state. Mm-hmm. They're not being, I would say, almost none of them are being forced by their husband. Very few, anyways. It's a very small percentage who might be actually being pressured by the father to do this. This is largely a woman's, entirely her choice, her initiative, her decision. Now, maybe there's some propaganda going on,
right,
some marketing going on, a narrative being pushed that they're victims of this narrative, that they've been told that there's going to be no psychological baggage to it, that this isn't a real life. They haven't been made aware of the medical advances that are making it hard for even liberals to be on board with abortion. I mean, it's surprising to me how liberals have been moving away from abortion because of the scientific advances on children, on babies in the womb.
Yeah.
Right. But so maybe you can look at that and say, well, they're not aware. If they had all this information, then maybe, then perhaps they'd make a different decision. But I would say most women get an abortion, if you gave them all the information, would still do the abortion. How do you protect a child that is in the womb of the mother from the mother herself?
Yeah. Well, there's illegal or not. Because if we make it illegal and they really want to abort the child, yeah, we'll have less abortions, but it's still going to occur. I mean, it's the same thing with gun laws. If we make guns illegal, are all the guns going to disappear? No, they're not. It's the same thing, each side.
Exactly. And then, there's like you say, it's been illegal and they still happen. Mm-hmm. And there's other ways that, mothers can get rid of the the children. And then what are you going to do? Let's say you make abortion illegal. Are you going to imprison mothers who get abortions? You're going to put them in jail?
I would say yes, honestly.
Well, a lot of people would say that, but then, politically, that's like suicide.
No, yeah, 100%.
I mean, that to me, that's like a utopian Christian, idea. Yeah, just put the women in jail. It's like
it's murder,
right? And I understand. I mean, I get it from a doctrinal point of view, but I'm looking at it politically, saying nobody is going to put the mothers in jail. There's like we're gonna put the doctors in jail. I seriously doubt it. Mm-hmm. To me, all this is politically unviable, which makes it a very sticky, difficult problem.
I think the only way it would be viable is if somehow you prove that these are actually lives in the womb.
Well, they have come basically to the point of proving that, as far as I can tell. And this, to me, they've proven it, right? But that's not hard, that's not hard to prove.
Prove's not the right word. Convince.
What I'm saying is, I think that for an increasingly large number of people who are on the pro-choice side, they have made the case. Yeah. I mean, I have heard strident liberals, not far leftists, not eugenics type people, but strident liberals accept and agree publicly that science has proven that these fetuses are in every meaningful way human beings with a life, with sensation of pain. Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things that really moved the abortion needle in the United States was when they did those in utero photography. They put a camera in there and took pictures of these babies in color, and it's the baby's yawning and laughing and smiling.
It's crazy.
And sucking their thumb, and at ages it's easy to think, well, this is a blob. It's just a blob of tissue, and like at around 9 months, it pops into being a full-formed human being. And now you look at these pictures of these 3-month-old and even younger babies, fetuses they call them, and these are full formed. They're identifiable. You don't look at that and go, "Oh, that's an interesting blob of cells."
Yeah, you look at it, you can tell that's a human.
That's a human being. It has a brain and it has toes and fingers, and it's And then they prove that they sense pain. You got pictures of ultrasound movies of babies being aborted who are trying to avoid the instruments that are being used to avoid it. So they're obviously sentient in some way, and they're sensing pain. All of that has made it very, very uncomfortable for even strident liberals to not accept that this is life.
Yeah. I think the most dangerous thing that's out there is a my body, my choice. It's just utterly ridiculous, I believe.
In some way it is, and at the same time, and I know this is probably going to offend my conservative friends, but I'm good at that. At the same time, looking at it pragmatically, so I can understand where you're coming from, like from a doctrinal point of view, I understand, but looking at it pragmatically is like, what's the option?
What's the option? What do you mean?
To that, my body, my choice. What is the option, pragmatically speaking?
Well, I'm not sure what the option is, but my rebuttal to it is that's not your body. If you want to go and kill yourself and abort the baby in doing so, that's your body, your choice.
But even that wouldn't be the case. I mean, honestly, that would also be, just intellectually and for intellectual honesty's sake, that would not be your choice either. That once you have a baby, you no longer have any choice.
I think so.
Well, I would agree intellectually, right? But I'm saying that pragmatically, that's a very hard thing to get across.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, especially if you're one in that circumstance.
From the pulpit, I could make the case you're making.
Right.
But I couldn't make it in the voting booth.
Okay.
I couldn't because I don't see it to be politically feasible.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the problem. See, this is the issue. I think that this is the strength, I believe, of Christianity on issues like this. I think the Christian worldview is the most sophisticated and convincing perspective ever, because Christianity allows for this complication. It acknowledges it, and it has allowance for it. So in Christianity, we do not force politically our morality, or what we would call absolute morality,
right,
on people, because we acknowledge that forcing morality of any sort on somebody is not moral. Right. It is immoral in itself.
Yeah.
It results in immorality, not immorality. So if I force you to behave as a Christian should behave, that in itself is unchristian. You are now, because it's hypocrisy.
Exactly.
Right? So I am forcing you now to not behave as a Christian by forcing you to behave as a Christian. The only way to be a Christian is you have to be persuaded in your own mind. There's no other way. There's no other way to be a Christian. You cannot force somebody to be a Christian. Yeah. When the Spaniards tried to do this, and it didn't happen as often as people nowadays want to pretend it did, but when they did, when the Spaniards came to the New World, and probably they weren't the only ones who engaged in this behavior, but when the explorers came to the New World and forced people into Christianity, what they misunderstood is that they were forcing them away from Christianity. Mm-hmm. Not in consequence, but at that very moment, because anything you believe by force is not Christianity. That is not the gospel. Right. The gospel is persuasion. You have to be persuaded in yourself of your own free will. If there's any element that is not free will, then it is not the gospel. That's why I'm so against the type of preaching that is like berating or browbeating, browbeating people into a confession because they're afraid of going to hell. Yeah. Anyone who gets saved because they are afraid of going to hell, I know there's going to be people that disagree with me on this, and that's fine. They're wrong. But if you're getting saved because that's it, you're afraid of going to hell, then you are being forced into a conversion. Mm. And that is not salvation.
Yeah, I don't see how effective that would be either. Because if you don't believe in a heaven or hell, then how are you afraid of a hell?
Well, that's interesting because I saw a video just recently on YouTube from a young atheist who says that he's an atheist, but he's afraid of hell.
Yeah, I think at that point they're just lying to themselves. I don't understand how you can. Oh, God doesn't exist, but hell does.
Yeah, well, I guess who makes that decision? I haven't watched the video. I just saw like a little clip of it. It's like on my list to see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that may just be the clickbait of the title. I don't know, but. Yeah. But anyways,
maybe he's afraid of the possibility of hell, which that would make.
Or they define hell kind of like Jordan Peterson does, where it's not a literal hell, or it's not a, I don't know how he would put it, but it's like an existential reality of life and pain or something. Anyways, but my point is that even if you believe that there's a God and you believe there's a hell, and you're afraid of going, and that is why you want to get saved as fire insurance. I want to avoid hell. I don't think that's salvation myself. I don't think it is. I think that you have to be persuaded of the truths of the gospel. The gospel of Jesus Christ, according to every creed we have, does not include hell. Not to say that hell doesn't exist. That's not my point.
Right. No,
but when Paul says, "This is I delivered unto you what I also received," and he recites that creed, which most theologians believe that's the oldest creed we have. Paul didn't write that part. He is quoting as he says, what he was told, and it was like passed on as a creed. And the creed was that Christ died according to the scriptures, he was buried, and rose again the third day according to the scriptures. That's the creed of the gospel.
Right.
Right? It is a positive, I hate using the word positive because people might think I'm trying to say it's like, not mean. It's not what I mean. What I mean is it's something we actively must believe, right? It's not something we are fleeing from. It is something we are turning towards.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think repentance is misinterpreted or misrepresented as being turning from sin, away from sin. But it isn't. It is turning towards righteousness. Right? It's not that we focus on sin and try to turn our back towards sin. It's that we focus on righteousness and turn towards righteousness. And to me, that's a distinction that's very important. And it goes to this point that Christianity is about the voluntary submission to truth. And therefore forcing somebody to do things is not a Christian perspective. So going back to what I was trying to say is that when I vote and I think of politics, I don't think that I don't think of it saying, well, we just need to institute New Testament morality on the nation and everything will be better. That does not work.
No.
You can force New Testament like they did in certain areas in New England back before the United States was incorporated, right? Back when we were still colonies. And they came in and they the Puritans tried to enforce what they saw as New Testament morality, New Testament concepts as forms of government. Never worked. Doesn't work. It doesn't create good government. It doesn't create good Christians.
No.
Now, I'm not saying that they may not have been better governments than a government that is like all out immoral, because they're forcing immorality on people, and that's a disaster also. So
it seems like it's easier to follow that. I guess it's easier to convince people to follow it, the immoral, than the moral.
Well, you don't have to do much convincing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And there is a delicate balance, I think, where government is responsible for a baseline morality. Right? They're responsible for life, liberty, and property, for instance. That you can't just go kill anyone you want. You can't steal what you want. And that's a baseline morality that there's somehow that government we and by government I mean people collectively have decided we're going to have a baseline morality. And the conundrum of the founders of America was, how do we ensure that baseline morality doesn't change to be something that's like ridiculous, which is where we're at today.
Yeah.
Now the baseline morality is you can kill babies and you can have sex with whoever you want, and it's going to become whichever age you want. People think that that's not going to happen. They think that's ridiculous. But back when homosexuality was being argued for and being promoted, and Christians were saying, the moment you allow homosexual marriage, you're going to then have polygamy marriage, right? Polyamorous marriage. Right. And they're like, no.
That's not connected.
Well, here we are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now they're saying, now you're going to have arguments for pedophilia.
Yeah, I heard that one.
Yes.
2 or 3 years ago was the first I heard.
And people are like, no. Yeah. Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to have arguments for, marrying your dog.
Oh, goodness.
Well, why not? I mean, honestly.
If you identify as a dog, then yeah.
Well, yeah. And why can't I not pay taxes if I identify as a dog? Dogs don't pay taxes. Why do I have to pay taxes? Maybe dogs do pay taxes. I have to look into that. I mean, if a dog got an inheritance, would he have to pay taxes on it?
That's a good question.
I should look into that, because if it not, then when my rich uncle gives me an inheritance, I'm definitely identifying as a dog.
Like those dog actors and things like that. Do they get paid, or is it the owner that gets paid?
The owner gets paid, I think, and then they pay tax. I wonder if the dog pays taxes on its doggy treats. That's interesting. I have to look into that. I bet they do pay taxes.
I read about someone inheriting.
Wasn't there a dog that got an owner's inheritance?
Yes, that's what I was about to say.
Oh, that happens a lot.
I forget what kind of dog it was, but it was millions.
Yeah. But that's one reason why they tax the dead.
And he had children too.
That may be one reason why they insist on taxing the dead and not the living. That there's the estate pays it, not the people receiving
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It's an estate tax. So they would pay the taxes because they're taxing the dead.
Hmm.
And that would be a good argument for taxing the dead. Because if not, you leave all your money to the animals,
Yeah.
administered by the children.
Yeah. Exactly.
Kids are poor. They just work for the dog.
You just take care of the dog.
Dog needs a Rolls Royce.
Yeah. Ride around in a Corolla.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
No, so my point though is that I think I see Christianity as having the ability, the unique ability. I don't think any other religion even comes close to this, of being able to navigate a political reality and understanding that what we look for as values individually cannot be instantiated collectively. They cannot be forced on the population or on the collective. And to do so would be unchristian. This is why I bristle whenever I hear arguments by atheists saying that Christians, if you really believe Christian doctrine, they say, you would force people to believe, to save their souls. And it's like they don't understand Christian doctrine at all.
Yeah, that's
It's not just that we would think, oh, that would be unsavory. If I thought I could force you to believe and that would save you from hell, I would definitely do it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I agree with that. If that were, but that is not Christian doctrine. That shows they don't understand. You cannot force anyone to. You cannot force your children to believe.
Mm-hmm.
Can't force them to.
Yeah.
And doing so is actually the opposite effect. You're actually forcing them to not believe the gospel by forcing them to believe it.
Yeah, they'll resent you for it and whatever you're teaching.
No, but that actual forced belief is lack of faith.
Yeah.
In itself. Even if they never resent it and they go their whole life thanking you for it, forced belief is in itself lack of faith. You can only believe freely and independently. It's the only way. Anything else is not belief. It's like forcing you to love me. Can't be done.
Yeah.
Can't be done. I can hold a gun to your head, and the more you love me, being forced to love me, that is not love.
Yeah.
That is the opposite of love. The only way you can love a person is freely and independently.
Yeah.
And that's what faith is. Faith is loving God. In its essence, that's what faith is.
Mm-hmm.
When we say, do you believe, do you have faith? What is faith? Faith is loving God. You cannot love God unless it's independently and voluntarily. And when Christians and because that's what Christian doctrine is, well, then we say we can't go to the voting booth and force the country. I can't go to the legislative process and force mothers to not abort their children.
I don't know. In some ways, I disagree with it. I understand the concept, and I understand that making abortion illegal is not going to stop abortion. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it's legalizing murder.
I agree.
So it's
No, that's the conundrum. I agree.
Yeah. So that's why I can go to the booth and say no.
I vote for one. What I vote for is for politicians who are going to overturn Roe v. Wade. You're going to send this matter back to the states. And most states are going to pass, or half the states are going to pass laws that outlaw doctors performing abortions, which is what I think they should do.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, if we outlaw the abortion itself, then we have to criminalize the mothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is a dead-end street, in my opinion, politically, morally, in every way. Just like I think it's a dead-end street to criminalize drug abuse.
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about more and more as well. Also, if we're my body, my choice.
Yeah,
where does that end?
Do we criminalize suicide? Do we criminalize drug abuse? Do we criminalize overeating? Do we criminalize eating the wrong kinds of food, eating sugar? I mean, how far do we go with it? I'm not trying to morally make a moral equivalence between abortion and eating sugar at all. I'm just saying, do we get this path that's going to go down this road, and if we're being intellectually honest, we're going to criminalize the behavior. Okay, fine. as a politician, I can see someone politically saying, "I'm so against abortion from a medical or scientific standpoint that I would want it criminalized." I could go along with. I understand that. I'm speaking as a Christian. As a Christian, none of these things make any sense.
Yeah.
Criminalizing sin makes no sense. I understand what we criminalize. In my opinion, this is my opinion. I believe we criminalize things that affect other people.
Exactly.
And abortion gets sticky there because it is another person, it is a human soul, and so I understand that, and I understand the complication there, and yet I think because of all the issues, I fall more on the side of saying states should prohibit abortions being performed. So it's criminalizing the medical procedure done by doctors, not a mother getting an abortion.
Yeah. I think that's a smart way to go about it. So who's going to open an abortion clinic if they know they're going to go to jail for it?
Right.
It's not going to happen. Or if it does happen, it's not going to.
It's going to be under the. It's just going to be like all other crime. It'll exist. It'll be criminal. But see, that's a very bad argument from the pro-choice side, who say, well, if you make it illegal, they're going to do it anyways. Well, then let's get rid of all laws.
Exactly.
Because I don't know of any law where they don't do it anyway.
No.
The law is not about
preventing
it. Exactly. The law isn't about preventing it. That's what Paul says in Romans. The law, this goes to our discussion we've been having in church lately on the law. But the law doesn't prevent anybody from doing anything. And that's the flaw in the law. All it does is criminalize it.
Well, it sets a guideline as well. You know right and wrong now.
Right, and it criminalizes.
It does. It definitely criminalizes it.
It's real important, I think, to make that distinction in the law, because people who think that Christians should keep the law, they think that guideline is passive, and it's not. The guideline is actively sin. In other words, it actively is declaring sin, and so what the law accomplishes in every instance is to criminalize behavior.
Yeah,
that's what Paul says. He says the law came, sin revived, and I died. And then he says, I found that the law was sin and death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going back to like the legalization of drugs, I think that's why it's so important to have these things illegal. It's so people can, a 14-year-old kid that hears about this stuff, like, oh, there's this thing that'll make me feel really good. Oh, but it's against the law, so therefore it must be bad. It just creates a clear black and white, if you will. So, I mean, if it wasn't illegal, I firmly believe a bunch more kids will be doing it.
But do you think it should be illegal universally, or just make it like cigarettes and alcohol, where it's illegal until a certain age?
I think illegal to a certain age would be
restricted.
A middle ground, but I personally think it's best to just have it all illegal.
The problem with making things like that illegal, making personal behavior illegal at all ages, is that it creates I find it has a tendency to create a disrespect for the law itself. So when societies have tried to make their societies better by multiplying laws, they find that it has the opposite effect, which is again a point that Paul makes when the Apostle Paul talks about the law. The more law you have, the more law you have against behavior, the more sin you're going to have. People are going to do it anyway. So now you've turned everyone more into criminals.
Right.
And there is a balance at which now it's like, well, I'm a criminal. So why not be a full-out criminal? Why stop at smoking weed once a week now that I'm there? It's like, let's just go on all the way.
So I think weed, I don't necessarily mind if marijuana is legal. I don't see marijuana as a drug that really has that much negative effect, other than it does lead to other drugs. And I say that confidently because I have family members that I've watched them use marijuana for a certain amount of time, and eventually they got into more hardcore drugs. I mean,
But do you think something leads to marijuana? Is there something like cigarettes that lead you to marijuana? Or alcohol?
I don't think so. Because a lot of the people that I knew that smoked, they just smoked marijuana. Actually, a few of them didn't like alcohol. As far as cigarettes, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
My point is that if we were to find that there is some behavior that leads to marijuana, then it becomes, you see the slippery slope then. It's like,
that's what I think.
It's like then we end up outlawing, reading a particular newspaper
Right.
if we find that there's some connection between
No,
the New York Times and marijuana, which there might be. We might want to outlaw the New York Times.
I'll sign it.
A little.
No, and that's why I think marijuana should be legal. Because, I mean, number one, there are medical benefits to it. But, I mean, you can go about your life and be a pothead. Some can. Some, they're just completely lazy. But at the same time, does that mean everyone...
Have you ever known anyone? I mean, I know they're out there, apparently, kind of high-profile cases. But have you ever known anyone who was a pothead who was productive?
Yeah.
Really?
In fact, a bunch of them. And
Really?
whenever you find out, if you just look at them, it's like, it's just a normal citizen and law-abiding. But no, they smoke weed.
Interesting, because everyone I've ever had experience with who was a pothead was a complete loser.
Most of them are.
I have not had that good experience.
I don't know if it's the marijuana that made them a complete loser or if it was...
No, in most of the cases, yeah, it was the marijuana.
Really?
Yeah.
We always knew when they were smoking again. Because they would stop, they would tell us.
Okay.
And we always knew you were smoking again because they turn into dorks. Not like acting stupid,
No, I
but
know
they
what you
just
mean.
make
It's
stupid decisions.
Yeah.
Bad decisions, bad memory, affects their memory, affects their cognitive ability.
Yeah.
The people that I've known, it's like workers I've had work for me, I could tell. Like, all right, they're on pot because they immediately start just, not really having, kind of listless, not engaging at work. They're not motivated, ambitious. It's just like, hey, dude.
Yeah. No, I've definitely known a bunch of those, especially in high school. You'll see them doing well, not great in school, but and then they start smoking weed, and sure enough, they drop out. I mean,
Yeah, that's been
how
my
many I've seen.
experience. And like I said, I know high-profile cases, like you say, Joe Rogan or those guys are just potheads and they're smoking weed and then highly productive and ambitious or whatever. But since I don't really know him, right? I don't know him personally or people like that, then I don't know any of I don't know how much of what he's, the pot is the show, the shtick, or if it's real, it probably is, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how productive he was or could be, or I don't know anything about it. So I find that too many kids look at, like, say, Joe Rogan or someone like that and go, well, he smokes pot and he's doing great. So
I think it's at a certain age, honestly.
Well, he does say that. He does say that he doesn't think kids should be doing it, that it's not for developing brains.
There you go. That's probably what it is then. Is your brain just stops developing and probably starts going the opposite direction. But from what I've seen in certain people, especially younger.
I've had friends from like 6th grade, and honestly, by the time we were in high school together, he still had a 6-year-old brain. Or 6-year-old, whatever old you are at 6th grade, 12-year-old brain.
Yeah.
He had a 12-year-old brain. I mean, just walked around like a complete idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just who he was. I think it stunted his intelligence. It stunted his intelligence.
So most of the people, now I'm looking back, that were productive and smoked pot on a daily basis, basically, they were all older. I say within their 30s, maybe late 20s.
And why did they do it? What was
They said it just relaxes them. The same with like someone that goes home and
has a drink.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing.
That is weird. I have never thought I want to go home and have something to relax me.
No.
Never.
No. I don't get it.
I don't either. I don't understand that.
I can see
I like having a brain that works.
Yeah, I can see I need to escape.
I don't have never wanted to escape anything.
Not that I want to, but I can understand. Like, I just need to escape and not think of anything. Like, okay, I get it, whatever. But the whole, I just need to relax.
Whenever someone tells me they're like, oh, I just want to go somewhere and not think of anything, I'm thinking, why would you want to do that?
Yeah. And does pot actually do that? I don't think so.
I look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, I only have one thing going for me, if that, and that's that I can have, and that's that I can think. And the last thing I'm going to do is shut that off ever.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest nightmare is I'm going to hit whatever age. Let's hope it's like 90, but maybe 70. And I'm going to turn into one of these babbling idiots, right? That just like tell the same story 100 times a day and can't remember where they put their shoe. And, I'm not trying to be mean to any elderly people, but that to me is my nightmare. I'm going to be that. And I'm basically like have told my family that the moment that happens, they're to shoot me in the head. In fact, I plan on making like a video and telling myself like that they can give me this and say, you need to watch this. And it's me telling the future stupid me, you need to quit preaching. You need to retire. No one's going to tell you this because they're too nice. So I'm telling you this. If they've handed you this, it is time for you to shut up. And you probably need to kill yourself.
And just because you probably forgot, the gun is located.
Yeah. And what I'll do is I'll just watch that every year on my birthday. And the moment I think that'll never happen, it happened. That's how you know.
The moment you disagree with, this was stupid.
Yeah, that's it. That you know it's done. You know it's happened. That's you. And it happens everywhere. It's sad. Have you listened to John MacArthur lately? Have you heard him preach lately? He's 81.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
The dude is 81. I listened to messages from him 20 years ago. He sounds the same. Incredible. Whatever he's eating, I need to figure out what that is. I need to find out what he's eating, what he's doing in his life. He doesn't have computers. He doesn't use a phone or computer or any of that stuff. Like smartphones.
How's that even possible?
I don't know. He writes all his books, like write them out by hand. He has people that transcribe them or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. I was hearing him preaching, and I'm like, he's 81. That's amazing. And Thomas Sowell, I don't know if you know Thomas Sowell, he's 90.
Yeah.
And he's still sharp.
Yeah, he's pretty sharp.
He is sharp. He just wrote another book and he's doing all these interviews about it and stuff.
Yeah.
Very smart guy.
Yeah, I like that guy.
Yeah, so, you think of a 90-year-old, and a lot of people at 90, and that'll probably be me, kind of decrepit, and you need someone to care for you and stuff, and that's normal. That's probably be who I am.
No, I think it's the same thing with just being physical. If you continue a certain regimen and just stay active, you're going to stay active longer.
Well, that is true. Those people tend to have like an exercise regimen or whatever, especially if they don't work, in physical labor. I get enough exercise, I think.
Yeah.
I do.
Oh yeah, I think you do. It's especially stuff with your mind. I mean, every time I talk to you, you have something else that you're looking into. You and Pemberton, like I talk to you guys, like, why are you looking into that?
No, it's true. It's constant. It's 20. It's if I'm awake, I'm thinking of something and researching it.
And I think that's what's going to help with the whole, keeping your wits about you.
Let's hope so.
You're exercising that muscle.
Let's hope so. Yeah. Well, one thing I have read in the research is that, we used to think that the brain gets old. People are like, oh, I have an old brain. It doesn't.
No,
people get lazy.
Yeah.
People get lazy and they don't want to study. They don't want to think. They don't want to learn anything new. And it's not that their brain is incapable of doing it. It's that their spirit is unwilling.
Yeah. You look at these 80-year-olds running marathons. Like, 80-year-olds can't run marathons. They're too old and brittle and weak. Like, no, they're just not lazy. I mean, the ones that are doing it. Not that they're not lazy, but they push themselves.
Right. And there's some genetics involved, I think.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
There's definitely genetics involved. But it's like everything else. It's like people who are overweight. And I'm going to pick on who. No.
He just posted a message too.
Oh yeah, Daniel. Look at there. Daniel says
Albert Silver but he took it off. He said he liked to go home to a bowl of chili when he wants to chill out.
Oh, nice.
It led right into what I was gonna say, Albert. I wasn't even gonna mention your name. No, it's like people who are overweight, which are most Americans, me included. We can talk all we want about that we're big boned, but I always found it interesting. You don't have any big bone people in Ethiopia, or where people are starving. There's no big bone people there. Where's the genetic problem where people don't have food?
Yeah, and did you get an X-ray and compare yourself to another one before you had?
I did. You should see the size of my stomach bone.
Okay.
My stomach bone is like enormous.
It's really round for some reason.
Yeah.
It's strange.
Albert has a big stomach bone.
It's called abs.
Abs. There you go.
That's right.
Daniel says that the name of the guy that I was talking about who narrates that Bible,
nice.
His name is Max McLean.
Max McLean.
Max McLean. And I'll have to look up the sermon that from Keller. I have to find it. It'll take me a little while, but I'll post it on the thing because I think everyone should go listen to that and hear how reading should be done.
Yeah.
Not that any of us will ever accomplish that. I mean, that's setting the bar really high.
Yeah.
But it's when you hear it, it's real awesome. It's like, wow, give you goosebumps. Like, man, now that's how the Bible was written.
That's why I like The Chosen, just to go back to that.
I know.
And that's just the subtle, even the emotions that the people in the background even.
Yes.
It's so...
They have put a tremendous amount of thought into that and working out the dialogue in those shows. And I like that I can watch them several times and pick up on stuff that I can see. Yeah. Oh, like to me, when I first noticed just how sophisticated they were being in their writing on it was when Nicodemus and Jesus are talking, and then John is over there writing down the stairs. Yes, and he's like, shh, and he's writing down the conversation.
That's fantastic.
Yes, that's so good because then what they're saying is they're taking the Bible seriously, that this was written down as it happened, not 70 years later at third hand. This is the actual people whose name is on the gospel wrote it as they were hearing it. And you know, I understand that there's real Christians who think that that's probably not the way the gospels were written, and there's an argument to be made about that. And it's not even that I think it has to be that way, that if you don't think that you're wrong. I just think they're showing that they are taking this very seriously. They are taking the Bible very seriously to the point of saying that the Gospels were actually written as it happened, basically, at least the first draft.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's just very, very good. I mean, when I see that, then I like the show so much more because then... Yeah. Because my problem with all these shows and movies is they just never take anything seriously. It's like they're dismissive of the Bible itself.
And they typically have an agenda. Like they have, you know, if they're a Calvinist, they'll try to make sure you definitely understand that this person was predestined for this particular reason. Like things like that happen in most of the shows. And I don't really see that.
No, I don't. You're right. I don't see really pushing anything other than a strong Reformation type view, which is salvation by faith and grace. And they also was very good, I thought. Well, it was extremely good. They resisted the urge. We'll see what they do in the second season. They resisted the urge of making Christ a social warrior. So they have I forget which episode, but they have the line in where basically they say, you know, something about the poor. And Jesus basically, I forget how the line goes, but he basically says, I'm here to save men's souls. Yeah. Not their pocketbooks. That's not the line, but it's something to that effect. That Jesus came about sin and salvation as Protestant Christians comprehend that, as conservative Christians understand that to be. Because I don't know if you've listened to or done any research or heard about the whole modernist versus fundamentalist argument that happened in the 1920s.
No, not that I recall.
So I mentioned before, earlier in the podcast, we talked a little bit about, or I mentioned about that work that the conservative Christians in 1915 put together, which is a series of essays, 12 volumes of essays on what they called the fundamentals. And that's where we get the term fundamentalism. So the term fundamentalism came from this effort that a couple of millionaires, well, yeah, it was back then, so today they'd be billionaires, Christian billionaires, at their time millionaires, funded. They published it themselves, and they enlisted all the leading conservative Christians to write for it. And they got these Christian pastors to write these articles on things like the divinity of Christ, the infallibility of the scriptures, the reality and truthfulness and accuracy of the miracles, that the miracles are real, they really happened, they're not metaphors. They had like 5 main categories that they wrote a number of essays on. There's like, I don't know, 30 or 40 essays on these 5 categories by all different pastors at the time, very famous ones, most of them. And they called it the fundamentals. And that's where all of a sudden fundamentalism came into being. That's when it started, really. The idea of fundamentalism, at least as a concept, right? And it was a resistance against the modernity that the church was pursuing. The Christian church, because of German rationalism, was chasing. Are we all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Was chasing after a very liberal, modern perspective, which was Christ is not God, never pretended to be. He didn't raise from the dead. He wasn't born of a virgin. The miracles never happened. They would be violations of the laws of nature that didn't happen. And the big one, in my opinion, was that the blood atonement of Christ, that Christ did not come to blood atone for sin. He came to save people from poverty, from racism, from inequality, social justice warriors. That's 1920. So what we're seeing right now, that began in the church. What is wokeness now, and all these atheists are embracing it? Just like everything else that the world has, they got it from the church.
Yeah.
It came, even the bad things. The good and the bad. The good things of the church, I mean, everything is enlightenment and American democracy. All that came from the church.
Yeah.
And all this bad stuff, the woke and all of this all came from the church. The church has been on the vanguard of all of these movements. And so it's this modern Christianity that does this. And their view was that Christ was not about sin. He wasn't about any of that. He was a social justice warrior, what we would now call. That's
Right.
not the terminology they used in 1920. They called it liberalism. That's where the term was used and applied to that. And so that's where you had this battle between the fundamentalists and the liberals. And there was a very famous preacher, Baptist preacher, Fosdick. Yeah, Fosdick. I think that's his name. Fosdick was his last name. William Fosdick. William Harrison Fosdick, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, he was a Baptist preacher who was a Presbyterian pastor. So he was a Baptist who got hired at a Presbyterian church in New York. And he was what we would call a flaming liberal. Completely liberal, completely against all these fundamentals that I mentioned. And he preached a very famous sermon. It was so famous that the New York Times published it on their front page. That's how famous he was in New York at the time. And the sermon was titled, "Shall the Fundamentalist Win?" And it's a whole discussion on what's wrong with fundamentalism from his point of view. So if you want to get an idea of kind of the liberal view in 1920, it's a great sermon to listen to. You can find it on YouTube. Obviously, he wasn't recorded, but it was transcribed. Yeah. And so there's people on YouTube who preach it.
Read it out.
Read it out. Yeah, basically read it out.
Yeah.
And then you can also download it and read it. And obviously, I don't agree with him. But from his perspective, it's a very good sermon.
Yeah.
I think it's very wrong, but it's very good. I mean, he does a really good job in 35 minutes or 40 minutes of putting together an argument of why he's against fundamentalism. And but it gives you an idea of what we're seeing today in society, where it came from. Because you would think it was today. You would think that was preached today in some liberal church. And that's the divide that happened there. And that's where then you get these denominations that have divided, like the Baptists have divided, and all these ones have had divisions, and that's the division they follow. It's whether or not you're fundamentalist or you're liberal.
Yeah.
You're woke. I mean, that's the division.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, very good. I think that I hope that there are some. I hope that the young people listening to what we're talking about, especially early on the matters of work, that's one of the things we're really trying to push here in the podcast. And I think you're a great example of success in that way, that you can use your wit and your work ethic, especially, right? I mean,
mainly work ethic. So
Yeah.
I was not an intelligent person back then. I mean, not saying that I am now, but it was very basic.
Just show up on time. What would you, if you were given my son, not this son, but say I had a 12-year-old son, and you were telling him how to get ahead through the path you took, what would be the points of advice you'd give him?
Be on time. Actually, be 10 minutes early. That's not too early. That's not too late. Doesn't look like you're stealing time. Be at least 10 minutes early. Don't worry about what other people are doing. A lot of times people will compare their workload to their coworkers' workload, and it's even slightly higher. They'll complain about it. And as an employer, that's something that you get very frustrated with. The other would be learn everything you can about every aspect of the job, whether you think you should be responsible to do it or not. Doesn't matter. Find out what your boss's job is and how he does it, what he's good at, and really take note at that. And
what do you mean by that? How is that? What would you? How expand on that a little bit?
as far as find out what your job, your boss's job is. So basically, find out what his responsibilities are. Number one, it'll help you understand why he or she makes the decisions that they make, and they're not out to get you, because that tends to be the complaint that I get. Well, he just wanted to give me this extra flight because, whatever reason. Like, no, there's a reason behind that, and you were available. It had to be done at that particular time. It also, a lot of times, especially when it comes to watching supervisors, they're just sitting around looking around all day. They're not doing anything physical. Their job is to supervise, which is watch. So,
yes.
I mean, it appears as if they're doing nothing. The more you find out about what your job is, your boss's job is, for the most part, the more you'll respect that person and see that they're not just doing nothing. Also, when it comes time for that promotion and you get interviewed, you already know what the job is, and you can explain and really articulate how you can do the job to the standard or better, whatever ideas. Innovation is something that goes a long way when I interview someone for a promotion. So if they say, hey, I would like this job because I found out, or I believe that this way would work. Even if it was something completely off the wall, and I would say, yeah, I've thought of that before, but this is why it didn't work for me. But I still take in consideration, because they're thinking of other things than their job, their task at hand.
Right. They're not just going through a rote routine.
Right.
They're putting thought into it.
And how to better the company. And just knowing that mindset is there in a particular person, that puts them on the top of the list. Yeah. And
then what would you, because you mentioned about supervisors, and that's a very, how hard is it for you to do that, to not want to just go out and do the work? Is that hard?
That was the hardest thing for me as a supervisor.
To not just get in the truck and go do it yourself.
And actually, that's something I have to argue with my supervisors constantly on, because they don't want to tell someone else to do it. And part of it is they feel guilty that they're not sitting doing around. Exactly. And they want to show face with the other fuelers and say, hey, look, I'm just like you. I'm jumping in the truck. I'm not making you do something that I can't do. But yeah, it's at times it's easier to just jump in the truck and do it yourself, rather than track down the fueler, tell him to go over there, have an argument or just a discussion in general of, this is why I need you to do this. I just go jump in the truck, and it takes 10 minutes. But it's going to take you 10 minutes to go find the person, get them over there, and get them on and off the flight.
Yeah, to me, that's like the shark that's hard to jump. Is when you're when you start from the bottom, like you and I did, and you work your way to the top of something, and then you're basically kind of, we're both in a supervisory position, right? And I still do work every day, the manual part of the work, and then I'm also doing all the owner work and all the supervisor work, and all of that as well. But I find that it's very hard for me to jump that and get to the point where it's like, no, I can't do that work anymore, because it costs me too much money for me to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm losing money that I should be doing this other work over here. And that's a very hard thing to do when you start from the bottom. I think if you came in as a manager, you went to school to be a manager, if that could work. I'm not convinced that could work, but let's say it does. And you come in as a manager, maybe those people don't have as much problem with saying, nah, I'm not going to go fuel a
Well, I think the part of the issue is that you understand how easy that job is as well to yourself, because you've done it for so long. So you don't mind doing it. I think someone that just comes in and has no idea necessarily, say what hanging a partition is, it's real easy to say, hey, you go do that, because you don't know how to do it. So it's
Yeah.
yeah. Of course, I'm going to tell him to do it. He knows how to do it. I don't. But if you know how to do it, then it's a little bit more difficult to go and ask someone to do it. And that's definitely it had to be a conscious decision for me to say, okay, I can't do that anymore. It was actually harder for me to divide instructing supervisors and doing the supervisor's job whenever I became a manager. To tell a supervisor, don't do the schedule this way, do it this way. I had to step back and say, hey, I'm just doing his job the same as the supervisor doing the fueler's job. So I tend to challenge them more on it. Say, hey, why did you do it this way? If they gave me a valid answer, even if it's not the best way or the way I would have done it, if they can prove to me they thought it out, then I'll let them go.
Right.
But if they just say, I don't know.
They just went with the easiest course of action at the
Right.
moment, the path of least resistance.
Exactly. But if they can prove that they did it for a reason, I'll let it go. But if they just did it on a whim, then I won't say chastise them about it, but I'll poke at them a little bit.
Right. You push back a little bit on that.
Right.
Make them start thinking.
Exactly. And that way they know if they make a decision without thinking about it, I'm going to be there to question it. And most of them take it well. Some of them are like, oh, I guess I did it wrong again. Or they get down on themselves. But it's still fun.
Well, that's the hardest thing for me. And you know, this is one of the problems I have with a lot of people who work for me, that I'll bring in like a new person, and a lot of times they're like angry, like they think their job's in jeopardy. The people that are already there, they're like, oh, I guess they're trying to get rid of me. And I'm like, first of all, like if I wanted to get rid of you, I would just get rid of you. I mean, I don't need to go through a whole rigmarole to do that. I just you know, you do enough stupid things every day, I can just fire you anytime I want, basically. Yeah. I mean, if that was the case. But I tell them, you know, if you would teach this person how to do your job, do you think I'm going to give you their job?
Right.
Or I'm going to give you the job of teaching the new people how to do the job? Which job do you think I'm going to ask you to do if I found out you could teach someone to do your job and they could replace you? Yeah. You think that means I would fire you or I would promote you? Yeah. And they fire me. It's like, you're right. now you're right.
Bro. Yeah, I agree.
It's like, oh, it's just painful. Yeah. It's like, what is wrong with you people? If I could just find somebody who could do it so well and could teach other people to do it well, then I would hire more people and say, teach them how to do it. And then I'd have people that could do it, and you'd get promoted. I would pay you more because you could teach people to do it.
Yeah, that's one way. I don't know if it's manipulative or not, but it's you go and brag about someone that's underneath someone else. So if I go to a supervisor and say, hey, I think this fueler would be a fantastic supervisor.
Oh.
Like, I'm a fantastic supervisor. Watch me. So, it's a little bit of mind games. Yeah. Maybe that's wrong, but it's effective. So
it's effective.
Yeah.
That's funny. Man, hopefully your employees don't watch the podcast, huh? It's okay.
That's fine. They'll still fall for it. They can't help themselves.
They can't help themselves.
I don't do that to you.
They're like, oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
That's other people.
Yeah. You're better than that. Yeah, I know.
But that guy could be really good at it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that's really good. I'm glad you came in. We're happy to have you here.
Appreciate it.
And it was great and good conversation. And I hope that people got, I mean, you had a lot of really great things to say. So I hope that people listen, because not only on the work and then, you know, the whole discussion on abortion, we need to figure out, I think the church needs to figure out on a lot of these different things, how to approach these maybe a little differently. And I don't know that the meme strategy is working too well. And so
too complex.
Yeah. And so I think we need a little better discussion and dealing with these issues. So hopefully we'll get some of that.
Amen. All
right. Well, thank you, Josh. We appreciate you being here. We'll be here next week. Who's with us next week? I think it's Marco.
You have Marco?
Yes.
Isn't it Dalros?
No, that's the following week.
Okay.
Yeah. So next week will be Marco Chaides will be with us. And we'll be talking about how his whole testimony and how he got saved and And that's all very, very interesting. Marco has a very interesting story on that. So we'll be discussing that with him, as well as his ministry in Mexico as a missionary for a lot of years. So join us next week, Saturday, 9 a.m. And if you speak Spanish and want to watch similar things in Spanish, we also do a Spanish podcast every other Friday and every other Saturday. So like yesterday we did one, and then next Saturday we'll do one, and then Friday. And so we're alternating between Fridays and Saturdays. And so if you know Spanish and want to listen to those, but those are not on the Freeborn channel. We have another channel because we have so many dozens of listeners or subscribers. It's like YouTube told me it had filled up, and it was
overloaded
YouTube on this channel. So we opened a new channel, and we have ones of subscribers.
Almost double digits.
Yes, let's not be crazy, but we're almost to half a dozen. So we are burning it down. YouTube is putting in whole new servers just to handle us. So, but no, if you want to look at that, that is called La Medida, and that is the Spanish one. And we do that because we don't want to confuse anyone that might look into our church and think maybe we're bilingual or that we're. So I don't want it to look like we're trying to represent ourselves as that we have a bilingual church. So that's why we're trying to keep any Spanish content on a separate channel, so that there's just no confusion or it doesn't look like we're misrepresenting what it is the church is about. So you can go there. The channel for the Spanish is La Medida, and that we stream the Spanish ones live on Facebook, not on YouTube, because most of the audience in Mexico is actually on Facebook. They're not on YouTube as much. So we stream live on Facebook. And our plan, if we ever get our fiber that they're hooking up, we're going to stream these English ones on both Facebook and YouTube at the same time. That's the plan. We'll see how that works out. Anyways, thanks for being here, Josh. Take care. See you later.
Ooh.